Now good afternoon. Now calling this meeting to order. If we could get everyone to turn off their cell phones or make them on vibrate in the audience, much appreciated. Of course, that applies to staff and council. This meeting of the General Governance Committee meeting is being held in hybrid meeting form with virtual and in-person participation by members of the public, staff, and council. This meeting is also being live streamed. It may be viewed online at ajax.ca/live. A friendly reminder to all participants to use a microphone at all times for the benefit of those participating in the council chambers and joining remotely. I now call this meeting to order. Land acknowledgement. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territories of the Mississaugas, more specifically, the Mississaugas of Scugog Islands First Nations, signatories of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williamson Treaty of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past, and through authenticity and support the truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action in acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Moving on to adopting the minutes. So can I get a mover to adopt the minutes of the regular July 16th meeting? I don't know who it was, but I saw June 16th meeting, but I saw Councillor Bauer's hand up first. Any comments, questions, or, well, comments or questions? I'll just go with comments and questions, observations. Sorry, folks, not feeling well today. I apologize. Nothing? Okay, so can I get a vote on that, please? Call that for a vote. Thank you. Are we waiting for someone? And that passes. All right. So we have some separation from the consent agenda. 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, 4.6, 4.7, 4.8, and 4.11 are up for discussions. And can I get a mover for the remainder? And that is count. 4.10 should be pulled as well, Chair. I don't have 4.10 on my list.
You know what? You're right. It's the same thing. Fine. All good. There's two things on user fees. My mistake.
Just let me double check here. Okay. Yep. So we are correct. And Councillor Rob Tyler Moore seconded that. And any comments or questions on that? Nope. Okay, consent agenda. Call for a vote, please. Excellent, that is passed. Okay, so give me 1 minute here. So we're going to go through and Madam Clerk, we're going to go through and discuss these in order, correct? Okay, so give me 1 minute here. 4.1, which is commemorative naming policy. And we have pulled for that. We have Councillor Rob Tyler Moore is first, then Councillor Bauer, then myself. So we will start with Councillor Rob Tyler Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So yeah, just with regards to the commemorative naming policy update, maybe it's clerical or I read it wrong, but as a result of the engagement, staff recommended expanding the commemorative naming policy to explicitly include the option of using Indigenous names for parks, buildings, and other municipal assets. So not streets, correct? Through the chair?
That's correct,
Okay,
through the chair.
thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Next, Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Henry. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the report. I had two questions. One is on page 20 for 3.5, where it talks about names that do not meet the established criteria are not recommended by the committee, and that there is no appeal or reconsideration process through the committee. So I just want to confirm, does that mean if a name is requested or nominated and it is rejected, that it can never be brought back?
Through the chair, the only way that someone would be able to do that is if they made an appeal to it's not an appeal process in terms of our process that we use internally, but if they came to council and made an appeal to you directly, and or a council member brought something forward that they'd like reconsidered on the floor, it'd have to be done through council resolution.
Okay, thank you very much. And the second question was on page 22, and it's bullet 4.3.2, where it talks about background information to demonstrate the significance of the community and aligns with the above noted criteria, et cetera, for part of the nomination. Curious, for the nominating committee, how I guess, vetted are these applications? So if it's a person, is there a criminal reference check, or like how deep back to determine that this person, if it's a person's name, you know, it won't be removed later or changed later if something comes up?
Through the chair, the committee will be established after this policy approval, and once that's done, I think that they're going to talk about ways for criteria, but yes, it would expand to that level if there was a reason for us to explore that.
Okay. Meaning if someone brought it to your attention, or you would examine it yourself?
No, if someone brought something to our attention, we would explore it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Those are my questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions before I ask mine? Seeing none. So, Director McClarty, just to circle back to Councillor Bauer's question with regards to next steps, if the committee was to say veto the name through the commemorative process, what does that look like for the person who has requested that? How would they know to come to council to ask for that reconsideration if there's no second step process where the committee's rejection or approval comes before this council for approval anyways? If that second step is not implemented, how would the person requesting it know to come to us?
Through the chair, there is a point in here, a section where we do talk about the fact that they would be notified by email, and council would be notified by email. And the reason why we would want to do it in that kind of matter is because we don't want to make public our rationale about why we would not consider someone. So it would be made through an email. And then, of course, if there's any discussion that a group or person would want to have after the fact, it's just outside of our policy. That's why it's not here. So if they would like to talk about ways that they could bring something forward, or if they wanted to talk to a local council member and a council member wanted to bring that forward, that's up to the person and council.
Excellent. Thank you for that clarification. Seeing no other questions here, I'm going to call for a vote, and I'm going to ask if Councillor Tyler Morin would like to move this. Yes, excellent. Could I call for a vote, please? Thank you, and that passes. Moving on to 4.2, and in the order in which it was pulled, I have Regional Councillor Lee and myself. So Councillor Lee, Regional Councillor Lee, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everybody. So we have done this survey. It was exhaustively researched, over 1,000 signatures from petitions. All this information, we've received information. What is the next steps for this information? What are we going to do with this?
Through the chair, while the idea of the community bus has merit, staff do not see this as an urgent priority at this time, and particularly within this council term. So in the interim, we recommend focusing on improving and better communicating our current offerings to ensure they're operating as efficiently as possible. The results did indicate there is significant room for us to improve on how we promote and deliver our existing services, especially to the north. We're also sharing the results of the survey with and exploring potential partnerships ideas with DRT as well. However, if there's interest in pursuing a community bus program, we strongly suggest it can be considered as part of the next strategic plan process to be undertaken by the new council chair, just due to capacity and financial resources at this time.
Do we have an approximate idea of what a community bus would cost? Not operationally, but capital?
Yeah, through the chair to Regional Councillor Lee, through our older adult operating model analysis, I believe it was anywhere between $250,000 to $300,000 per year, depending on the fees that would be collected, help offset the operating costs.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you, Chair. Happy to move it.
Thank you, Regional Councillor Lee. Haven't got there yet, but yes, I will be happy to let you move it. Just a quick question. We're at a stage where we're talking about better communication for the services that pre-exist. And so a twofold question there. How are we going to do that when a lot of the seniors were used to receiving information via paper that no longer exists and are not online? What's the plan with that?
Through this process, we even identified that we were printing off booklets for the seniors as well to participate in this survey process. So we do need to explore printing and making that available. In some cases, we printed off bundles for advocates of seniors to go to deliver for us. And so it is something on our radar and we're looking at.
And when we talk about not urgent, respectfully, I've heard different from the seniors, so I'm just wondering what further consultation with Durham Transit looks like in order to possibly get back. Let's start with the south, but I mean in the north we have nothing, so what does that look like?
Right. In the future, I don't believe there would be a direct partnership for the community bus with DRT. It would be something that the municipality would be bringing forward at a significant cost. So when I'm talking about partnerships, I'm talking about ones that we can promote and advocate some of their service offerings that they have, including the one-on-one support that they have for travel plans and working that out and bringing those folks out to where the seniors are in order to explore that and understand the current offerings. In terms of the town's offerings, we do have a bus that goes to just the senior center that I think and my colleagues believe that we could do a better job in terms of promoting and utilizing that current service that we have, that we'd like to take the opportunity over the interim between council terms to work on and deliver a better program.
So for the seniors that are aware of this current service level from Durham Transit and are not happy with it, and we're advocating to have the bus brought back, where is that communication? What does that look like?
If council would like to explore bringing back the bus, it would have to be some advocacy between council directly and DRT. So it would start with a motion and direction to advocate and pursue DRT.
Okay, thank you. That's kind of what I was looking for. Thank you, much appreciated. And Regional Councillor Deputy Mayor Lee, such a long title there. He's going to be moving this, so if we can call that to a vote, please. That passed. We're going to move into 4.3, please. And that was pulled by Councillor Tyler Morn, and at the end of it, I'll give you the opportunity to move it as well. If you want to request, there you go. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, once again. My question through you, the chair, to staff, I believe Director Meredith, with regards to the contract awards for new vehicles coming in at about $1.6 million for these beautiful trucks, 2500s, 3500s, 5500s. I just wanted you to speak very briefly to the procurement process, how we ended up getting the dealerships that we did get that aren't in Ajax and are not even in Durham. That's my question. Just before, Sorry, that's my question.
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Tyler Morin.
Oh,
Not.
it's okay.
With respect to the procurement process, all of our documents as it relates to vehicles are on the town's e-bidding platform. So through that process, any vendor, any dealership has the ability to bid on our products. In this case, we did have 19 vendors that did pick up the documents. Ultimately, 7 did bid. And then we based it on sort of meeting the minimum qualifications and then lowest price. So everybody has the opportunity and the ability, including local dealerships within Durham Region or the town of Ajax.
Okay, that's good to know. That answers my questions. I just want to add into the record that we had 2 motions on, buying local. One was just recently in February 2025 with myself and Regional Councillor Crawford. Actually, she was the first on that. And it was a tariff, the tariff threats and how we said, provide timely information and localized support for Ajax businesses. But I guess it works both ways. Like, the businesses in Ajax need to know that we are indeed open for business. And we had a second motion back in 2021 with Mayor Collier, and that was over 2,500 businesses are in the town of Ajax, contributing over $8 million in annual property taxes. So I think this council would love to see, us using as much as we can locally, and I think that works both ways. Just thank you very much for the extra time, Madam Chair.
Not a problem. Any other questions? Seeing none, let's call for a vote. And that passes. Moving on to 4.4, Councillors Lee and Bauer. And Lee, you're up. Councillor Lee, you're up first. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Based on the report, it looks like 7 of the 8 Durham municipalities are part of the insurance pool. Pickering is not. I'm just wondering if they know something we don't. Are they getting a better rate that we're not getting? Or generally, we've done a price comparison and this is the best rate we're going to get?
Through the chair to Councillor Lee. I'm not sure that they're getting a better rate. We feel that as a pool that we do have more stable rates and are better able to get better rates, and especially during hard markets. So the town of Ajax and the Durham Municipal Insurance Pool was formed in the year 2000, so we've been part of that for 25 years. In 2017, Oshawa joined. So they did their due diligence and they thought it was a better deal for them to join as well. I'm not sure what Pickering, they have their own reasons for doing insurance on their own, but currently we feel that it is very valuable and good for the town to be part of the insurance pool.
And it says in the report, over the past 5 years, 234 claims were reported. Is that par for the course? Are we seeing an influx of cases over the past few years, or generally we see about the same amount every year?
Through the chair, I think it depends on weather. For one, I think we've seen a bit of a decline as we are mitigating certain things. We've seen most of our claims are trip and fall or slip and fall. So we've done a really good program to identify those areas on sidewalks and things and mitigated them and are improving them and correcting where there are deficiencies. So although we can't eliminate them 100%, I think the claims are better.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Bauer, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. Page 80 has that table that shows the total number of open claims as of June 30th, 2025. So does that mean is that 60 new claims or that 60 claims as part of the whole 234 in the last 5 years?
Through the chair, this is the total open claims, so not even from last year, it's from the year 2000.
Okay.
So there's 60 open claims right now.
Okay, thank you. And sidewalk falls are 28, and I know there is a process for examining and repairing sidewalks in the town, but when a fall occurs, is that sidewalk immediately moved to the top of the list and repaired right away, or what is the process for that?
Through the chair, so I can't speak for operations. I think they are identified and they are brought into the discussion, and then they are reviewed and likely, maybe Director Meredith can speak to that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, the sidewalk inspection program is an annual program. So all of the sidewalks are inspected on an annual basis. It's legislated under the Municipal Act. So it's through that process where there are certain sizes of trip ledges that dictate sort of the legislative response that we're required to provide. So we do maintain and sort of repair the sidewalks on an ongoing basis throughout the year based on our inspections. With respect to insurance claims, there are generally situations where we've dealt with those sort of right away. So
Yes.
if there is something that does come forward, we do respond immediately. We go out, we complete our investigation. If there is, sometimes there is work that has been identified, but it met a threshold that it didn't require immediate repair, so it has been identified and could be scheduled, you know, a month, 2 months down the road. So there is an active process, but we do respond to claims and we go out and do investigations immediately.
Okay, good. Good to know. Thank you very much. And this insurance coverage is completely separate from any kind of coverage for cybersecurity. Is that right? That's an independent insurance coverage?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Those were my questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Bauer, would you like an opportunity to move this one? Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, can we call for a vote, please? Excellent, that passes. Moving on to 4.5. Councillor Rob Tyler Moore and myself. Councillor Tyler Moore, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is this mandated by the province? I'm not suggesting we could audit ourselves, but does the province say to all 444 municipalities in Ontario, you have to have an auditor? Is that what this is? Through the chair?
Through the chair, so the Municipal Act does stipulate that we have to, by bylaw, identify an auditor.
Thank you.
Thank you. And my question relates to the award time of the contract. Seeing how we're moving into a new term of council in 26, at the end of 26, is it necessary to have the contract renewed for such a lengthy period? Could it be brought back through the new term of council? Why are we doing it this way?
To Chair Henry, our current award expired, so we had to come forward with something. And we are allowed to do for a 5-year term. So what we've identified in the award is annually, to review it annually, as well as long as there's adequate performance. But it doesn't tie exactly to the council term.
Understood. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, I do have another question from Councillor Bauer. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Henry. I just, and forgive me that I should probably know this, but who is the current exterior auditor? External.
Through the chair, it is Deloitte.
It is Deloitte. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent. Seeing no other questions here, Councillor Tyler Moore, you want to move this? Excellent. Can we move into a vote, please? That is passed. Moving into 4.6. Regional Councillor, Deputy Mayor Sterling Lee has pulled this. Go ahead.
Sorry, this is on user fees. Yes, I have a ton of questions. So confirm, can we, Mr. Vita, can you confirm last year the council direction was for non-resident user fees to increase? Was that on programming or facilities?
Through the chair to you, Regional Council, I believe that was for facilities, and that was 5% increase, so above the MPI. So 5% was applied to those non-resident fees.
So using last year's barometer, was that an effective increase? Do we see more money from non-residents, or do we lose money due to the increase in fees?
Through the chair again to you, Regional Council Lee, we, thus far this year, we've made approximately 5,900 in additional revenue from the non-resident user fees. So that is attributable to two things. One, it's attributable to the increase of 5%. It's also attributable to the addition of that fee onto ICE and gymnasiums that was added for 2025.
And what about actual usage? So total increase in requests. Was that increased or decreased?
We've applied that fee thus far in 2025, 1,701 times, approximately 800 times more than last year.
So in spite of increasing fees, 5%, we saw an increase in revenue and usage, correct?
That's correct. However, from a increase in usage perspective, I would just say that the ICE usage and the gym usage could have potentially been used in the same manner. However, the non-resident fee was not applied previously.
I guess at least my question is, why wouldn't we raise it another 5% beyond the MPI for non-resident facility rentals? Because we're seeing an increase. We're seeing more money from non-residents.
That's certainly an option. Just from an economic supply-demand perspective, I think there could get a point where those rates raise to the point that we start to see usage go down. So that would be one consideration.
I'm willing to roll the dice on this. I don't know about the rest of council, but my argument is, last year we raised it, we saw more usage, more revenue. I think there's room to raise it more. Again, this is for non-residents, not anyone who lives in the town of Ajax. So I would actually move to an amendment. I'll finish my questions first. Right. So I didn't see listed. Does ARC have its own? Oh no, it's there on 136. Sorry. Review of done programs. So we have a bunch of programs for camps and for after school, etc. Do we see the efficacy of the programs? Do we measure like, oh, we're trying to see a decrease in these programs for the past 3 years. Let's axe the program. Do we go through that exercise?
We do. We go through that exercise annually, and I would say even more so sessionally for the different sessions we have throughout the year. So low-performing programs are cut, high-performing programs we continue, and where we can, look to increase capacity if possible.
So when I used to live in Toronto, there's this private organization, they ran intramural sports. And pretty much all they did was connect users with gyms, they provide the equipment, and I'm pretty sure it's a money-making venture. Has the town ever examined the possibility of running intramural sports, an intramural league for basketball, hockey, for millennials like myself who are, kids are grown, I can now have an hour out of the house, but I don't want to go to Toronto.
Yeah. Traditionally, the town does not directly run intramural sports leagues. There have been times in the past where we may have run one to introduce a new sport, provide some new skills training or development, but typically we leave the running of leagues to local sport organizations. We typically try to play the role of providing the space. I would just caution with the limited space we have for gymnasiums around town that the town oversees. We could be hard-pressed from an allocation perspective to bring, say, a basketball, volleyball league into our gyms. There's certainly a number of organizations within Durham Region that do this and do this so successfully. I'm not sure that we have enough gymnasium space for us to do it to the same level at this point, without, of course, sacrificing other existing programs.
I was thinking more of just us being the middleman, so to speak, to connect the school gyms with users, because there are plenty of school gyms that aren't being used during the evenings in Ajax. I think it's a very safe assessment.
Through the chair, I would leave to DDSB and the Catholic School Board to speak to their the capacity for the gymnasiums. I understand gymnasiums are fairly well utilized within town and are challenging to come across, but again, they would have to speak to that.
Okay, I'm running out of time. One more question. We talked about facility fees, raising them. Have we ever done the math on what happens if we raise non-resident user fees on swimming, sports, etc.?
This is something that we do consider. Just to give some background to you for this one. So this past spring 2025, for general programs, out of 3,977 registrations, we had about 162 non-resident. For aquatics for that same period, we had 3,231 residents and 61 non-residents. So while there could potentially be a few bucks squeezed out of non-residents, it's quite possible they would just go elsewhere and not necessarily use our programs.
Okay. Chair, I'd like to move an amendment to raise our non-resident fees for facility bookings up 5% as opposed to the MPI index we are currently using.
Thank you. If we could have that up on the floor, and we'll move into discussion on the amendment, seeing if there is any.
Sorry, Diane, have a question?
Sorry, is there a question? I have a question on the amendment. Sorry, staff have input on this? ahead.
Chair, just like clarification, so in the user fee bylaw, as it stands right now, all non-resident fees have been increased by 5%.
So we're doing 5% each year, correct? Like,
Correct.
so I guess what I'm suggesting is, can we not raise it another 5% on that 5%? So we'll call it,
So for clarification, you'd like us to raise the non-resident fees to 10% from last year's base?
well, I'm kind of open to council, to be honest, because I think there is room to grow there. So I will leave it at 5 to 10% for now. And Chair, I think there's questions.
We're going to move into discussions.
Okay.
So, and we'll see what council's feelings are on this. So on the possible amendment of 5 to 10%, correct? Regional
We'll
Council?
call it 10% for now.
We'll call it 10%. Thank you. Councilor Rob Tyler Moore, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question through you to staff is, if we just do this, how is it logistically? Just take a few minutes, change the numbers, and we're done? Or is it cumbersome? First question, I have two.
Through the chair. We're setting all of the rates for 2026, so it's just an exercise, it's a mathematical exercise.
Okay.
It can be done.
Okay. And my second question is, Director Vida, can you say again, did you think like the 5% was okay? Did you, I'm asking this and you said it, that 10% would maybe have people say, we'll go somewhere else? Just could you repeat what you said in that area or speak to that? Do you think this is competitive? Or we're going to lose any money if we raise it, you know?
So two things. One, from a facility booking perspective, our facility booking rentals continued to be strong in 2025, despite the 5% increase. So just from my anecdotal vantage point, I don't believe that negatively impacted our ability to rent our rooms. Will there get to a point that it could? Perhaps. I will say one of the trends our staff see when they mention the non-resident fee to a prospective user is them looking to find a friend or family member who lives in Ajax to use their address on their registration form. So I imagine that tactic would increase as well.
And if I may, through the chair, one more quick question. On the amendment, just so it's for that, would you say that non-resident, just really, really rough numbers, are 30% who rent, you know, like a team that comes in from, cricket team comes in from Scarborough or something? Would you say a third or? If you don't know, that's okay. It's just,
Yeah, I don't have the hard data off the top of my head. However, I would say the non-resident usage for our room rentals would be higher than non-resident rental of ice and gymnasium, if that helps.
yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much, Chair and staff.
Thank you. Moving on to Councilor Bauer, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the amendment, Regional Councilor Lee. Is 5% just an arbitrary number? Because I worry that, you know, there is that point where a non-resident is going to say, no, too high. I'm going to Whitby, I'm going to Pickering, or wherever. So to go from 5%, bump it right away to 10, I'm not sure. Is that the mark? Is it better to start, maybe we look at 7.5, right? Like because 10%, when you say something 10%, somebody like that's a number that sticks in your brain. So I'm not sure. We could do, not yet. So that's my concern, hearing it on the floor right now, that we're worried that it might come to a time where people just say, forget it, I'm walking away. And I wonder if that's it. So is it a slow bump up? I know Director Vida gave some comment. I'm just thinking about it if it was me, right? Thank you. So I guess that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bauer. Regional Councilor Dice, go ahead.
Thank you. Just curious too as to what our
Is it working? Sorry, apologies.
competitors charge for or? What do our competitors charge for out of residency in their municipalities?
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Dyes, I don't know that I have that off the top of my head. I'm not sure if staff, I'm not sure I have that information readily available, although we can certainly look that up and get back to you.
Well, that would be good because in my opinion, I mean, if we're going to get the business from, you know, say Pickering or Whitby, whatever, their swimming is full or skating is full, at least they're coming here to Ajax, and that's a good thing. And it gives us a good reputation that we can provide those services. It doesn't matter where you're from, you're still paying. So it worries me that, you know, there's a reputation you have to to hold up, and you have to be available to a certain degree. They're still paying an extra amount. And I think that's a good thing if they choose to come here. And I'd be concerned if it turns people away.
Regional Councillor Lee, I'll let you back in for 5 minutes.
Ooh, I don't need 5 minutes, but I'll take the 5 minutes. No, I mean, Councillor Power brings up a good point. 10% is very much arbitrary. I just doubled it. Again, we saw an increase of 800 more bookings, including ICE and all the other facilities, and a revenue of 14,000. So if I can make that 28,000 next year, that is non-tax revenue we are getting from non-residents. Like, that is the dream, so to speak. But I do understand the point. No, true. And I'm willing to even entertain 7.5, but I just think everything's bonus right now, you know, like based on what we're doing. You're right, we will reach a point where it's untenable for non-residents, in which case we will go backwards then, I imagine, and examine at that point. But I think by instituting a higher non-tax revenue for facilities, it opens these facilities more for our residents. It opens these spots for our residents, and that is a big concern for me. Because whether it's swimming, whether it's facilities, pool bookings for swimming parties, like, you know, we have the best facilities in Durham, I would argue, and I want to make sure that our residents get first crack at it and non-residents pay a premium for it. So that said, Chair, I will amend my amendment to 7.5%.
Thank you, Regional
Chair?
Councillor Lee. Before we, oh yes, go ahead.
Sorry, can I just get clarification if this is a one-time increase or if this is something you would like in perpetuity?
Oh, I see. One time, just to see the numbers.
And,
We re-examine next year. We put that language in the motion.
okay, and then would you, because right now we're going on the
Sorry,
premise.
Councillor Lee, could you hit your speaker, please? Thank you.
Sorry. So we are going on the premise right now when we're building the MPI, or sorry, the user fees of 5% non-res. So you're proposing 7.5% for this year, 26?
Correct.
And then back to 5%?
I think there'd be a note to be re-examined next GGC. I think it's the cleanest way to do that.
Okay, thank you.
So without setting a, you would, in theory, present us with the 5% or 7.5% next year, and we can decide from there. But once we have the numbers, like Director Vita just provided. Clerk, is that okay? Okay, thank you.
Sorry, before we call the vote, I'm just going to ask a question on this to Director Vita. Am I correct in understanding right now that, like, our facilities, particularly ARC, is constantly booked? I know that I spend most of my weekends there at events I've been invited to. Is that correct?
To you, Chair Henry, yes, our community hall is very well utilized. Yes.
And moving forward, when we're looking at this amendment we're making right now, Regional Councillor Lee, are we including this amendment with the use of our new fairgrounds? All facility rentals. Okay. I think that's a fair assessment when we look at the premium facility that we're going to be offering and adjacent to the premium facility we already have. So I think that's a fair request. Happy to support. Any other questions? Okay, let's move into a vote, please. On the amendment. That looks correct, correct, Regional Councillor Lee? It does. Okay, so we're going to move into a vote on the amendment, please. That's on the screen. And that passes. So we don't have to, Madam Clerk, we don't have to go to a vote on the original, do we? We do. Okay, so as amended, so I'm going to get Regional Councilor Lee to move that as well, and if we can have a vote on that as well, please, on the screen. Thank you. And that passes. Now we're moving into item 4.7. Just give me 1 minute to see who's pulled that. That is Councillor Bauer, 4.7. If you could hit your mic button, please, I'll let you in. Excellent. Proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much to planning staff, in particular Michael Sawchuk, for this report and for all of the work that went into it. It was something that hadn't been done since 2007, so I think it was, about time to bring it back, and it clearly was a very interesting topic, or a topic that many residents in Neighborhood 1 really cared about. And, witnesses, I can see several people from Neighborhood 1, most of them from Woodhouse Crescent, I believe. And it also reflected the feeling, the very divided feeling, in my opinion, of a heritage district designation, a heritage conservation district designation. So I really appreciate the results of the survey. I really appreciate that there were at least 4 opportunities for residents to come forward or to learn about an HCD at 2 CAP meetings, at an open house, and then there's today, or this survey process. So I did have a couple of questions. Let me just find them, I'm sorry. On page 198 of the report, where it talks about the very first paragraph, given that, where it talks about a scaled down HCD, and that had uncontested support for an HCD designation from local residents. There were small clusters of support amongst local residents, but none were sufficiently sized to represent a strong candidate area for HCD. Mr. Sawchuk, thank you today. Could you please talk about that a little bit? What does that actually mean, and what's the impact of that?
Sure. So thank you for the question. So through the chair to Councillor Bauer, when we were going through the process of analyzing the results, we wanted to dive deeper than just looking at the neighborhood as a whole. So at earlier council meetings, I talked about different construction eras, for example. So we looked at the results as they related to the construction eras of the neighborhood. We also dug even deeper to look at the results by street. And there were differences. There were some areas where support was higher than it was in other areas. You've mentioned Woodhouse. Woodhouse was the street where residents were most favorable to a heritage conservation district. But in looking at the results, I think what we hoped to have seen was a cluster of support that was unanimous. And the fact that we were able to map the results from the survey, it showed that there would be small clusters, maybe 2 or 3 properties in support, but then that would be adjacent to somebody who is in opposition. So there was nothing from a sort of physical sense that we could carve out where it would be unanimous support for the HCD. So we did our best to investigate those scenarios, and there wasn't anything that jumped out as being a great opportunity.
Okay. And could you talk about maybe some of the pros or cons or things that might be observed if there was just one small cluster designated?
Yeah, I think that HCDs are unique because obviously they're focused on, rather than individual properties, they're focused on larger groupings of properties. So in the best cases, there's sort of physical boundaries or identifiable boundaries to areas that you would look at for an HCD. So using Neighborhood 1 as an example, when we started this investigation, we looked at the whole neighborhood because there were obvious parameters there that would make sense, and then we wanted to drill down. When you drill down too far and you start looking at a very, very small area, an HCD isn't going to be as successful because it's still, that area is going to be open to the influence of all of the surrounding properties. So using Woodhouse as an example, if we were to move forward with a designation just for Woodhouse, there are a number of properties on Admiral, let's say, that would back on to those properties on Woodhouse.
Okay.
They wouldn't be restricted in the same way that the Woodhouse properties would be. So there could be scenarios where the Woodhouse properties are technically protected by a Heritage Conservation District, but the adjacent properties aren't, and you're still seeing large houses built, and by way of that, you're still having impacts on the Woodhouse properties. So generally with an HCD, it's better to be a larger area and a more physically defined area, because you can ensure that it's not going to have impacts from adjacent areas.
Okay, that's interesting. And I think one of the main concern that was brought to myself and Regional Councillor Dyes when all of this discussion first started was about monster homes and the height, the setback, the lot coverage. So those are different than character of a neighborhood. Is that right? Is that why? Like what? Talk to me about that.
So through the chair, those are things that are considered in an HCD, but those are also items that are regulated through zoning. So through this process, there had been some requests from residents to try to look at solutions by way of zoning only. And my response to that was, there are some things we can do. We've talked a little bit about height. Through our zoning bylaw amendment, we're looking at changing the definition of height, and that will help bring things down a little bit, not a lot, but it will bring the heights down a little bit. Now, with some of the other major considerations, we don't have the authority to make changes on those items, and I'll give you one example. One example would be lot coverage. So in this neighborhood, you have very large properties with, when they have the original homes, it's a very small amount of coverage on the property, something between 10 and 15%.
Yes.
So if we were looking to stabilize that, in the past, we would have been able to bring down the lot coverage maximum to something like 10 or 15%, and then that would ensure that all new buildings are similar to the original ones. With lot coverage, the province has implemented changes where they're restricting the ability of municipalities to bring down maximum lot coverage below 45% where there's more than one unit on a property. So, and we know through zoning, we allow for 4 units per property. So all of these properties, if they were to take advantage of extra units, we would not be able to cap lot coverage at any less than 45%, which, you know, that allows people to build up onto half of their property, and you'd start seeing these large homes still. So we're very much restricted in some ways in terms of what we can do through zoning.
Okay, but it's not impossible.
Sorry, say that
Sorry,
again?
I'm just saying it's not impossible. Sorry, comment.
No,
Or
there's
please.
some items we
That
can
are.
consider and we have considered already.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Sorry to interrupt, Councillor
Oh,
Bauer.
I'm sorry, my time
No, no,
is-
no, you're over your time, but I just wanted to make a point. I'm going to give you the extra time needed because it is your ward and it's a contentious issue, an important
No,
issue within
thank
your
you, I
ward.
appreciate it, Chair. I really didn't have many more questions, just,
You can if you need to. I'll give you the extra time.
thank you. No, you're right, it is a contentious issue. There are many homes in that area, and we all love where we live, and there was differing opinions. And I think something that came out of this survey, the open house, the opportunity for learning, is that there are still so many, for lack of a better word, misconceptions of what could happen with an HCD versus what you think might happen. So if anything, I feel like there definitely is room for more education on that and more awareness on it. Yeah, and I appreciate that it's also a very divisive issue. Maybe my question, one last question. Compared to the study, and I don't think you were here in 2007, neither was I, but did you find Similarities, differences, what was the feel of that result and today's results?
So through the chair, I think overall, the sentiments were fairly similar. I think back then, you're right, I wasn't around at that time, but looking at the past reports and that sort of thing, it was clear that there was a lot of concerns back in the early 2000s about what a heritage conservation district would mean for property owners. It's clear that many of those concerns still exist. And the way that we carried out this project, we wanted to have a public open house before we opened up the survey because we wanted an opportunity to educate the residents about what an HCD really is. So I think overall, there's still a lot of concerns. Some of them I think are merited. Some of them I don't think there's necessarily a lot of backing for those opinions, but they're concerns that are real and they do exist. With the last round, the final consensus was not to move forward with an HCD, but to move forward with zoning changes. And that is, in fact, what we were trying to implement just a few years ago before we started to see all these changes at the provincial level that influenced what we could do by way of zoning. So zoning was a potential solution in the past. It's not a potential solution now.
Okay. Okay. So maybe for confirmation, and I will certainly ask to meet with you again offline, the 45% maximum coverage that's being mandated for additional units on lot size, is that only for builds of additional units, or does that also apply to properties that are being redeveloped, single houses?
So if there's only one unit, we actually have a maximum that applies that's less than the 45. I believe, and I can't confirm this, but I believe for RB1 or R1B, which is the zone, I believe the maximum is 33% that we're looking at right now. But once there's more than one unit on that property, it bumps up to 45%.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I just, thank you for that. That's my last question. But just to the residents who have come, I appreciate the work that has been put into this by the residents as well as staff and the passion that you have shown. It has not fallen on deaf ears, and I think the results, show a lot of things that could happen. So I just want you to hear from your Ward 3 councillors that we have heard what you have said to us on both sides. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer.
Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Regional Councillor Dyes, Ward 3, go ahead.
Comment on what you were saying further. I was here in 2007 when we had that discussion about Neighborhood 1, and the issues were very, very similar, which is in a sense disappointing that we haven't been able to educate people about heritage designations, because sometimes they're very, very valuable, obviously, when people have an interest and really feel that we should protect something. So there were always those issues, but at the end of the day, the underlying issue was that people felt that they weren't given their rights. They were being taken away from them, and they didn't have the ability to do what they themselves wanted, which is not what you want to hear. I very much value heritage designation in many ways. Sat on the Heritage Committee for many years, so I understand it, but I also understand the public issues surrounding that, and the opinions surrounding those designations make it very, very difficult to do. You don't want to pit communities against each other, and with this one, it was very, very close in the opinions of whether we should or whether we shouldn't. And I just feel that it's detrimental to do that to any community where there may be hard feelings. But going forward, I'm hoping, I don't know how we do this, but I'm hoping we can still manage to somehow educate people on those values, particularly as our area gets older and there will be those opportunities. But I thank you for staff for going through the consultations and for the interest in the community. Really, really much appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you, Regional Councillor Dyes, and now Regional Councillor Sterling Lee. Go ahead.
Just a quick note, happy birthday, Mr. Sawchuk.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, well, that happened. Okay, we're going to move into a vote now. We have no other questions or comments from council, correct? All right, excellent. To receive for information, and Councillor Bauer, would you like to be the mover on this? Thank you. If we could bring this up on the screen for a vote, please. Up on our screen, not your screen at home. Thank you. Waiting on one person. Everyone, relook at your monitors, please. Someone's button has not been pressed. Thank you. That has passed, folks. We are now moving on to 4.8, and that has been pulled by Tyler Morin, Bauer, Henry. So we will start with Councillor Tyler Morin. If you could press your mic button, please. Thank you.
4.8, street naming bylaw and civic addressing bylaw update, through the chair to staff. Commemorative naming committee. Who is the commemorative naming committee? Who's on that? Like, just, maybe it's in the report. I didn't see it. Is that us? Are we the committee?
Sorry, is this 4.8? Is this commemorative on 4.8?
Yes, through the chair, to Councillor Rob Tyler Morin. That is part of the first report we considered earlier as the commemorative naming policy. This particular policy doesn't have a committee associated with it.
So Councillor Tyler Morin, back in May, we had a report that came before council, and it was a combined report of 4.8 and I believe 4.1. They have now been separated, and they're two separate agenda items today. Do you have questions on 4.8?
This is 4.8. No? Street naming bylaw and civic addressing
But there's no
bylaw.
commemorative committee, correct? There is none.
Oh, I just pulled that out of that part of the report. Maybe am I wrong?
That was in 4.1, not 4.8.
So, okay, so can you answer the question?
Yep.
Who is the commemorative naming committee? I guess it's out of order because
It's out of order because it's
Through the
been
chair
voted
to
on and
Councillor
closed.
Tyler Morin, there isn't a committee for the street naming and street addressing. There's only a committee associated with item 4.1, which Director McClarty outlined. It's for the commemorative naming policy update.
Got it.
There isn't a committee for this item.
Okay, that
This
answers
is
my
a,
question.
this is a policy versus a committee?
Yeah, okay, that
Was that
answers my
your only
question.
question?
Yeah, if I, it is my only question, yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
No worries. If you think of another one, I'll let you back in. Councillor Bauer, you're up next, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. And I'm not quite sure if this is the right spot for my question either, but it's about civic addressing, so the numbering of properties. So I thought, okay, phew, okay, let me ask. So there are circumstances, I can think of one at least in the ward, where properties right now have one number. So it's, I don't know, number 15, and then 15A, 15B, 15C. And I'm not exactly sure how that came to be or why that is, but does this updating of the civic addressing bylaw allow for the request to make it, 15, 17, 19, 21, if those numbers aren't taken already? So thank you, Director.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Bauer. There is protocol and procedure within the bylaw that helps us deal with these different addressing conventions.
Yes.
I know the example that you're
Yes.
speaking of, and it's not possible to readdress the property to an address on that particular street because already the numbers are taken up.
Okay.
We did give an alternative for those, that address to be addressed to a different street because of there was
right.
availability for the numbering that way.
Yes.
However, the way the lot's oriented towards the street, it doesn't really allow us for us to make that change. But we do work within the parameters of the addressing bylaw to come up with the best possible addresses that are available to us given what's already in place.
Okay.
I don't know what the circumstances were around that particular case, but we have all the tools that we need within the bylaw to properly address properties. And these are vetted through emergency services, CAMPOS, all of our agencies that would require addressing for that. That does get circulated out to them once those addresses are approved.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And when additional dwelling units are built on a property, what will be that numbering process? Will that be 15, 15A, 15B?
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer. In terms of addressing ADUs, there will be a numerical, a letter after the civic address.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, though. That was my question.
Any other questions before I move to question? Okay. So my question with regards to this, when I'm looking at this policy and seeing the separation between 4.8 and 4.1 from the May meeting, and understanding that we had made some requests of this council with the Indigenous consultation, it looks like we're proceeding in the right direction with that. According to the report, everything's looking good. There's been some friendships created here, which will move into the future and help better speed up the process when we come to these crossroads and want this type of consultation. My concern is, and I think it has been addressed in this, and I want to make sure, because I came in today's meeting with a mindset of, I'm going to make an amendment, but I think I've backed off that. So my understanding is that the street naming bylaw, page 241, section 3.3 of the street naming bylaw identifies that new names of streets can be compiled from other sources and subsequently approved by council without amendment to this bylaw. So I just want to clarify, because it is very, very important to the residents in my ward, that they have this opportunity, especially in new coming developments within Ward 2, to have street names that better reflect those that live within the community and the diverse community. And I just want to make sure that I am reading this correctly and that that opportunity does exist.
To you, Chair, that's correct. So any other name that does not follow under current street naming bylaw can be used without amendment to the bylaw, but that provides that flexibility there.
So what does that process look like moving forward?
To you, Chair, it would have to be through a council resolution.
So are you saying that if I am in the know, if myself and my ward partner, Regional Councillor Lee, are in the know of a development in our area, we would then have to come forward with an amendment or a request and have council approve it to have the name changed to, let's say we're going to use Smith from Smith to Manhattan, for instance. We would have to come forward with that type of notice of motion? Notice of motion?
To you, Chair, that's correct. Any names that are brought forward, they first have to be approved by Durham Region to ensure that that name hasn't been used anywhere else in the region.
And what's that process look like, the length of that process?
Through the chair, to the chair. The length of the process can be a couple weeks usually. The notification or the submission will get sent to the region through their planning department. And they would vet it through emergency services. So not only are they looking for the exact same name, but sound conflicts, similarities, pronunciation, anything that could be misconstrued during an emergency when a dispatcher is sending a emergency vehicle to a site. So they'll run that through their process, and then we get some acknowledgement back in writing that we can then add that name to the list.
So this has been explained to me prior to, and my question is, like, when we look at a region that would have, let's say, Yonge Street in it, where there's multiple municipalities with Yonge Street in it, but within a region there could be 2 municipalities with Yonge Street in it, that has obviously been allowed. Would we not be allowed to have, like, for instance, a Bollywood in Ajax and a Bollywood in Whitby or Oshawa?
Through the chair, no. Mainly because we already have redundancies in the system, and there's already been efforts made to clearly differentiate between those. Maybe change to the actual numerical numbers of those addresses from 2-digit to 3-digit to 4-digit to have some differentiation. You know, King Street, Queen, like all the kind of the older types of street names that typically settlements would be established, names of people that live there. So the effort is not to have those anymore, and nor would the region, I would think, duplicate the effort in having the same name across different municipalities for emergency services purposes.
So let me then ask whichever one of you can answer this question. When we're looking at this policy, we talk about room for Indigenous names to be approved. Does it go beyond Indigenous names? Diversity in general, correct? Or did I read that wrong? Is it just names in general?
I think the report just speaks to approve of names from other sources by resolution. So however council chose to bring a name forward through that process, notice of motion, there'd probably need to be some vetting of those street names, I would assume, as part of that motion coming forward. And then we'd have to report back, I would assume, to say these names meet certain criteria, or follow up with whatever group we need to in that case. If we're talking about Indigenous names, then we'd have to go through with our partnership through those communities to do that. I don't know if Sean, you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, to you, Madam Chair, I just want to clarify as well. So the recommendation in the report, well, this report is recommending the status quo in maintaining the current street naming process. Where you're seeing reference to the Indigenous names, the recommendation is that that be dealt with through the commemorative naming policy, which was dealt with earlier, and then those names are vetted through the commemorative naming committee. So I just want to clarify that for you.
Oh, okay, then I did understand something incorrectly. Let me clarify now back to you. Are you saying that any name that is not the status quo then goes back to the commemorative section, which is 4.1, which is not a street name?
No, through the chair, and thanks for bringing that up, Mr. McCullough, but even if council wanted to name a street with an Indigenous street name, council would have to bring that name forward through notice of motion for us to have that considered as part of it. So
Through the current policy you have before us, which is status quo.
right, but there is
back
a
in-
section within that policy that speaks about council can approve names from other sources by resolution. Other names, Indigenous names,
Okay,
any cultural names, locational names, like any types of names that council thought were appropriate, that met the criteria for proper response and emergency services, sound likes, all those other criteria that they are reviewed under could be brought forward by resolution from council or notice of motion for consideration.
so for the developer that came before us prior, that wanted to have the street named, what was it? Manhattan, they could now come before us. We as a council could have a motion, and we could decide one way or another if we want to move forward with that, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to ask now of my of council if there's any other questions now that we've gone through this. Seeing none? Okay, can we open the vote, please? Mover. Let's go to Councillor Dies. She hasn't moved anything. Would you like to move this? All right, hands up. Let's move this and let's vote, please. Thank you. 4.8 has been dealt with. Moving on to 4.11. We have Councillors Lee, Tyler Morn, and Henry. We will open with Regional Councillor Deputy Mayor Lee. If you could hit your button, please. Sorry, your title's so long there.
Deputy May Lee is my mother. Literally, her name is May Lee. So this report is just a receipt for information. Can you remind us what the price was when this was presented to us? I think it was back in 2019, 2020. It was right around COVID, if I'm not mistaken. What was the price then?
Through you, Madam Chair. So in 2019, there was a report that came forward that said there was an estimated cost for about $500,000, and that included renovations for the physical design and the AV technology. That was just an estimate at the time, and no fulsome quotes or anything were obtained.
So what about just the design part then? How much would that have been with 500,000?
We estimated approximately half.
So let's say the price has gone up 17,000, right? Or no, 15,000 since. So I'm wondering, you know, prices will continue to climb up. I want to make sure just we are making the most informed decision beyond aesthetics, which is, for lack of a better phrase, how to describe it. What are the functional reasons we would upgrade our format?
Through you, Madam Chair. So some of the upgrades included some accessibility upgrades with additional ramps and access to the dais as well on both sides here. And then it's also a change in how staff is presented in front of council. So bringing some of our staff, like the clerk's staff, closer to the chair to facilitate some better meeting procedures. But they are just upgrades, I would call them, to the current system that we have. And there's no detrimental issues with our current setup.
Unlike last time where there was, you know, we needed to get everything AV because of the fact that we were doing remote, we don't necessarily have that urgency this time around, right? Correct? As far as the clerk is concerned?
The technology is a significantly bigger upgrade at that time than it was to upgrade the physical layout of the room.
Okay, I'm happy to receive this information. I mean, just for council's knowledge, the price will continue to go up. So eventually we will have to decide if we want to make that change. I kind of agree this look is kind of antiquated. I don't know what that table does. It's been there since I joined. It serves no purpose whatsoever, but it's been there. So, but I also understand that it's a lot of money, and especially if there's no urgency, then I very much don't see us doing it this budget cycle, but maybe it's something to look into next term. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And if we can have Councillor Tyler Moore, speaker button, please. Thank you. I'll let you in.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, very much similar to which meant I'm not supposed to ask the question, but I do want to ask specifically. For the record, yes, I understand it's a big ticket item, it's for us, but the layout, having the clerks so far from the chairs are very challenging, you know, constantly trying to, so that I love the new layout. For the record, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. So in the report to, through the chair to, I guess, Director Valentin, the building maintenance reserve, how much is in there, you know, and that's where the money is supposed to come from, right? So it's money that we already have. And again, if we, you know, say, let's not do it now, it costs too much, and then we end up doing it in 2 years and it's, you know, $390,000. So my question is, why are we waiting if it's coming out of the reserve? All right, that's not fair. I'll retract that last part. I just want to know how much is in the reserve, and yeah, go ahead.
Through the chair, I don't have the exact number in front of me right now. I can get that for you, but it is all identified through our asset management plan. And as we've reported to council previously, there's not sufficient funds in any of our reserves to do all of the things required in our asset management plan. So this, bringing forward a new project, would then have to tie in with our budget process and spending caps and target balances.
So if/when this happens, and it comes out of the building maintenance reserve, does that mean it's not a capital project? Certainly not operating, but would it still fall under the capital budget?
Through the chair, yes, it would be identified through our capital budget. And usually anything over $10,000 is considered a capital project that comes out of the different reserves.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
And there's a potential as well, as we saw with the electronics here, there's always a potential for grant funding that we would look to investigate as well.
Yes. Hello, Liam. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Well, we've had a call out to Liam. Okay, so moving on. Councillor Bauer, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Henry. I can wait until after we vote. I just realized, in my apologies, that I did have one question on 4.9, and I forgot to call that out.
We've already voted on that, but we can let you
Can I
ask the
just
question after this.
Yes,
Let's wait till
that's
this is
what I mean. I'm happy
closed.
to wait. I just want to mention it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll get the question out of the way. So who do we have here? So I'm next. So With regards to the design, I just want to mention, I had a conversation with the clerk this morning, and my understanding is the design came before the clerk or myself were here. So when we look at the design, and we're understanding that this is being received for information currently right now, unless an amendment is made to this, we're just receiving this, folks, and moving on. We're not budgeting this because there is no budget for it. And yes, it could increase in time, but I want to say that if we do look at this again, I want staff to keep in mind, please, what has transpired in other municipalities. And currently, right now, the design of this with the raised floor, and even though it's just a rope there, if we start to see anything like what we've seen in other municipalities, we have the options to barrier things off and keep staff and council a little bit safer. I was actually in Pickering when it had to be shut down and when there were 5 police officers in the chambers and 4 security guards. And I can tell you, that was a scary moment because there was no safety for staff from the person that was at the podium. And the new design, when I look at it, and from my understanding, would be putting a barrier from anyone that presented a potential, and we don't get this in Ajax, but you never know, a potential threat right there would be putting staff in between council and the person. And I think there's a better way to come up with like a sept head design that would keep everybody safer. And I don't think that 2 ramps coming up the side leading right to council is necessarily the way. So I want to bring that up for future designs when we look at this. 2019 design versus 2026 design and what's happening in different councils. I think we have to just be mindful of that. That's it. We're receiving this for information only, nothing else to be done here. If we can open the vote to receive for information. And a mover, I'm going to go to, Councillor Lee, yes, we'll go to you, okay. Thank you.
I feel safer if staff is between me and danger for that.
You might, but staff might not feel that way. Okay, so that is, I've totally lost my place here. That is the end of our consent agenda, correct? Oh, yes, and I'm going to let Councillor Bauer back in just to ask a question about 4.9, correct?
Please. Thank you, Chair, and my apologies, I missed it. So 4.9, the Town of Ajax Housing Needs Assessment 2025. I just want to confirm that that is different and separate from the housing strategy report that we received, where it gave us short, medium, and long-term goals for what we're looking at and reviewing. I just want to make sure that, I'm just asking actually, is that separate? And does this impact that one or vice versa?
I know. Did everyone?
My apologies, Director Romanowski.
Yeah, I didn't. Can you repeat that again?
Sure. So the housing needs assessment, does that have impact to the housing? There was a report some time ago, the housing strategy, the housing, where it looked at, for example, when we would review the parameters of lodging houses, or like there was several items on that list that were short, medium, and long-term. Do those two intertwine at all?
I believe so. There might be some overlap. I'd have to follow up with Anuj and Sean just to get back to you on that, so I could send you something afterwards.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I
no
appreciate
problem.
it. Okay. Thank you, Chair. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, moving forward, we're going to now have Director McClarity, Strategic and Public Affairs, come forward for a presentation on 6.1, update on homelessness in Ajax. Actually, that's not Director McClarity. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Through the chair to members of council and department heads and members of the public watching at home. Thank you very much for your time today. Today's presentation is, I'm hoping to keep it fairly conversational, but really the goal is to share with council and paint a picture of the realities that our staff and the community are experiencing. And so off the top, I'd like to kind of set some framing comments that I want to acknowledge that this is an issue that requires a lot of partners working together. And there are a lot of folks in the community, organizations, individuals, other levels of government that are doing a lot of good work on managing the day-to-day challenges that we have. However, it's a complex problem, and my presentation today is going to walk you through just some of the realities that we have right now. So I'll walk you through sort of our current state. We're going to talk about the involvement of other levels of government, some legal challenges, what we're seeing, how we manage encampments, what's different this year versus previous years, some of the impacts we've heard and seen from the broader community, how we're planning to mitigate those impacts, and then look towards the future of what the next steps look like. And our partners at the Region of Durham, I do want to say, we're going to talk about other levels of government, but the town and our role, we're not the region. We're not the service provider. We don't manage homelessness. We don't have the budget or the operating capacity. We don't have the scope or the mandate from the province to manage homelessness. That is a responsibility that lies with the region. So we will have lots of time to talk about solutions, and there are lots of great ideas that exist in the community. But the goal of today's presentation is to set the stage and share the current state of what is happening in the community. So these are some things that I think everybody knows, that homelessness is not just an Ajax problem. It's complex, it's multifaceted. We all see it, and I think it's important that we talk about it. The regional staff that were here in June reported the by name list of 874, with 176 being from Ajax. I just wanted to share, the by name list is a great metric for folks that are working really closely with the regional service providers of accessing housing and other services. But the by name list is a fairly comprehensive document that requires past, living addresses, past experience, the source of income, if there is any, and other personal information that not all folks have the capacity to share or want to share. So this is that 176 number. Staff from our time on the street and being out and discussing with folks and seeing new faces, we believe that number is substantially higher. So in the past year, I'm going to say, we've kind of seen funding come from other levels of government. We've seen some changes to legislation provincially. But I do want to highlight that a lot of these changes have not actually led to a tangible change to our circumstances in Ajax just by virtue of what they are. So when $6.4 million in federal capital funding is invested into the 1635 Dundas project in Whitby, those are future beds. So that's the construction cost of getting that facility ready to house more people. That is a multi-month at best, a year-long project before we'll start to feel any impact of additional beds being opened in the system. There are 2 homelessness and addiction recovery hubs that the province has funded in the region. We don't know exactly the details of them, but we do know that they're not located in Ajax. There has been some additional funding from the province or the feds. And again, these are funds that go to the region because they are the system manager. They have housing, they have homelessness, public health, social services, all as part of their mandate. The town does not have, obviously, that mandate. The province has also made some changes to trespass to property, restricting public consumption of illegal substances, but these are things that require law enforcement, whether that's DRPS or our MLEOs and bylaw, to actually do some things that are very challenging to do. And a lot of that is compelling identification, seeing somebody in the act and having to, catch them, ticket them, do all of those pieces that is really not practical or feasible in the day-to-day realities of what our staff experience. We also have the added challenge of a unclear legal environment. So you will have heard over the course of the last year, year and a half, of municipalities being taken to court over their decisions to dismantle encampments. And there's case law is kind of all over the place, and it's really unclear for what happens when it's a lower tier municipality that has no responsibility over the shelter system, clearing or looking to manage their encampments that they have. So in a case like Kitchener or Waterloo, what's happened is that the courts have ruled that the municipality is unable to remove an encampment unless there is shelter available. So in our day-to-day practice, which I'll get into in a moment, that looks like us checking to see if an individual is interested in going into shelter. If they are interested, if they're actively on a list, if they're working with the region to get into a shelter, then that's somebody that now, based on some interpretation of the court, that the town could be open to some risk should we decide to go in and remove that encampment. Now that, I will say, caveat being that has not been tested in a lower tier environment where we as the municipality do not have the opportunity like a Hamilton or a Toronto to open new shelter beds. That's not something that we have the ability to do. So there isn't a clear, definitive legal, kind of legal path forward that staff are totally comfortable with. So what we do right now, and we identify encampments or debris based on different sources. We hear from residents directly, we hear from members of council, our staff that are out in the community identify it every day as well. And we triage our response to those based on visibility and community impact. And that is just a fact of the way that we look at the volume that comes in. Those that are immediate safety hazards that have proximity to places that individuals, residents, businesses kind of spend a lot of time, we're fairly quick to ensure that we're engaging all of our partners to deal with that. However, in some cases, when we do know there are encampments a little bit more remote, that is something where we, take a step back and we say, as long as there are no fires, we kind of identify that from a safety perspective, there are limited risks involved. We then just make sure with all instances, we engage the region's street outreach team. That also includes the primary care outreach team and the mental health outreach team, as well as DRPS. So we ensure that the region social service providers are able to connect with the individuals in the encampments before we do anything, because it's important for us to ensure that they're as connected with the region as possible. From there, we determine if they are willing to be placed in the shelter or if they're willing to be added to the by name list. So if they're willing to go into a shelter and they say, yep, I just need a few days, or I heard there's a spot coming available at 27 Station Street, I'm on the list to get in there. That is somebody that we then say, okay, perfect. Make sure you keep your area tidy, and then we follow up to make sure that that happens. However, there are lots of instances where folks are saying, I'm not going into shelter for a variety of reasons. And then at that point in time, staff are able to take some steps towards cleaning up the encampment. And this is a comprehensive team effort with operations, bylaw, corporate security, strategic initiatives, and DRPS supports as well. However, this is not a perfect system, so this is largely dependent on the availability of our community partners to support these efforts. So this requires outreach to be available to check in with folks. This requires DRPS to be on site and available to support our staff and keeping the peace if there are folks that are not happy about the fact that their encampments are being removed, and that's a reasonable situation. So DRPS needs to be available. And in some cases, these are people's personal belongings. So it does take time for folks to vacate sites, move along, get their things. And then there's also a lack of visibility into the shelter system. And the region is unable, and this is not a fault of the region, I will also reiterate that this is just a complex matter of there are a lot of shelter operators in the region. And when folks go in and then there's a vacancy and another person goes in, keeping track of who those folks are as they relate to the people that we are tracking as waiting to go into shelter, that's really difficult for us to do right now because we have limited visibility and the region doesn't have a system which they share that information in an up-to-date and comprehensive manner. So again, these are things that it's just day to day. We are managing this situation, but nothing is really being solved in terms of the broader issue. So these steps are really just helping us kind of get through the day, keep a lid on the issues, but we really are not any further along to solving this issue than we would have been last summer. So what you'll see this summer, and I'm sure everybody here and anybody watching at home would know, is that there has been an increase in visible homelessness across the community. And this is something that, you know, previously may have been localized to one part of the town, but I think is now in multiple other spaces throughout the town. And again, the experience and process and all of this is all based on the different locations of where things are. We know the plaza is a place of high volume of requiring cleanups or folks being around. And that is, you know, behind CFOC in the hub along Commercial. There's also the 27 Station Street building. But I will say that that location on the corner seems to not have the same level of volume of folks outside or challenging or nuisance-related issues on that corner compared to what happens behind the hub. We also have, and those that may have noticed, on the corner at Achilles and Harwood is a kind of large triangle-shaped piece of property that's owned by the Region of Durham. And so that, over the course of the summer, has effectively turned into somewhat of a regionally managed encampment system. There are a number of tents, number of individuals that the region visits with on a regular basis. They collect their debris and they try to keep it organized. However, the region has indicated to us through a letter from their legal department that due to the court cases, until those folks can go into shelter, the region is unwilling or unable to relocate them off of that property. We also have experiences in parks and green spaces, inside and around town facilities, and then to a lesser extent, we do have instances that occur on private property. So I know members of council will know this, but we do hear on an almost daily basis about the impact on the community and the neighbors across the town. So primarily, I've mentioned here, you have the owners, patrons, and employees of businesses in the Ajax Plaza. We have residents in the downtown area, including those around Hunt and Stonewood Streets, Neighborhood 1, the users of our parks and green spaces. I will say we've had some threats, some I think less serious than others, but of business owners that claim that the town is not enforcing its own nuisance bylaws, and so they feel that they can take us to court to see that through. We have folks that say they're not going to pay their property taxes because of this matter. We also have unsafe environments for individuals experiencing homelessness. We have very vulnerable people in situations that are very dangerous for them. And then I think the broader community and the reputation of downtown Ajax and parts of Ajax at large, these are all impacts that we are kind of trying to navigate through. Just a quick snapshot, and you can kind of see it better here, but what we have here is just a snapshot of what encampment cleanup has looked like this summer. So actually we had out of date, so we had 25 locations cleaned up. We are more like over 30 now, with 29 of them happening behind the plaza since June of this year. And you can see here that there's been 55 tents cleared, there's been couches, we have fire concerns, all of those pieces that staff are really trying to track some data and understand what this impact looks like, which leads into the financial component here, which is where I'll share that the town incurs approximately $250,000 annually in expenditures to manage encampments. And we expect that this year's costs will be higher than in previous years. And this includes the coordinated efforts of the staff that are responsible for managing the encampments, as well as the corporate security costs and any contracted services that are incurred to do these cleanups. And this you will see in the 2024 last year's budget. For 2025, we did note this in the budget as a recovering cost from the region, and it's something we'll continue to do moving forward. So I'm getting close. Thank you for indulging me with the additional time. We are at a point where we are looking, we've made some decisions to try to mitigate this summer that have been different. So we have increased security presence between 6 and 8 a.m. That's focused on the storefronts of the Ajax Plaza, where folks are, seeking refuge in the vegetables on the way into the businesses. These are folks, we just want folks to not impede access to businesses. However, we saw last week when the weather was really cold and rainy, folks that would normally have been very quick to move along or move to the back or just be elsewhere, when it was rainy and cold, sought refuge in those vegetables. And it was very difficult and very challenging. To have folks move, but also to make that ask, I think was something that was very challenging. Additionally, we're looking at installing some fencing to block the area directly behind the Kindertots Daycare and the Peak Learning Center. These are organizations that deal with children and vulnerable individuals. And so the proximity of some of the tents and some of the activities that happen behind the plaza, we're looking to kind of just move those, do what we can to move those individuals a little further north on the boulevard. We'll be installing some new no dumping, no donation signage to address the folks that are very well intentioned, of course, dropping off food and items for individuals in encampments and other homeless folks living behind there. However, it is something that really creates a lot of debris for our staff to clean up, and there are more appropriate ways that folks can be donating or doing good things for the individuals. We are on a daily basis now scoping all of across town to ensure that we're on top of any emerging encampments or situations across town.
Sorry to interrupt, Mrs. Brownridge.
yes.
Sorry, I know that you're out of time, but I don't know if this matters to the clerk or not. I'm willing to give you an extra 5 minutes, so don't feel rushed and please take your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So one of the ways that staff are proposing to address this, but we haven't yet, is to establish a licensing regime that will regulate shelters and social services providers that are operated by public authorities or appointed agencies. So this is not intended to be a punitive tool that limits access to shelters, but really the goals are to create safer shelters for the patrons that visit them, as well as the folks in the surrounding neighborhood. So this is something that staff are looking to be bringing forward to the October meeting of council to provide all of this information on how we seek to create this licensing program that will, as mentioned in my presentation, create a safer environment, mitigate the impact on neighbors, and increase accountability for the operators themselves and their funders. Childcare, if you want to open a daycare in anywhere across the province of Ontario, there are very stringent regulations that even the region of Durham do put in place. And so looking at why a shelter or a crisis care facility would be treated any differently is something that, you know, staff want to think a little harder about. So the purpose of today's, in closing, I'd like to say that this is an update to council on the changing reality of what we see in the community. More is appearing that we can do less about. So it's really to educate the community and members of council about, you know, staff and the town's frustrations, but also the challenges that we have in feeling on that day-to-day basis fairly helpless. So while we don't have the funding or the operational capacity to be doing actively implementing programs like, you know, transitional housing or modular buildings ourselves, that's something we're always open to. And so I do want to reiterate that to folks, that our door is open for these conversations. We just need land and we need a partner in the region and the upper levels of government to implement something like this with the support of our council. And then lastly, it was to preview the licensing regime for the operators of the shelters to ensure standardized and safe access for vulnerable individuals. So I'm happy to take any questions, and I thank you very much for your time and the grace with the additional time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Brownridge. You did a fabulous job, and never feel rushed when I'm the chair because I'm never going to cut off a staff member. We're going to let you continue. You're here to help us. So with that being said, we do have a number of questions, and I'm going to start with Regional Councillor Sterling Lee.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Brownridge, for the report or the presentation. So currently you said no lower tiers ever faced a legal challenge, so we don't really know the precedent for this, correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
So right now, is there no legislation that dictates what the precedent is right now?
Through the chair, a very conservative legal opinion would tell you that the decision to dismantle an encampment when folks are actively waiting for shelter would be a violation of their charter rights. However, that is untested when it's a lower tier in that context.
Okay. And then right now, so example, across the street from Achilles, there's that plot of land. I remember I called you about that, and you said to me, oh, it's regional land, right? And as a result, it's up to the region to clean it up or find space, correct? How many regional lands are there within the town of Ajax?
Through the chair, thank you for that question. So we are in the process of completing or have completed a publicly owned surplus land inventory. So that is tracking and identifying parcels of land across town that are owned either by other levels of government or broader public service. So once we have that, we will understand which pieces of property belong to the region, which belong to Metrolinx, which belong to CN. And then from there, we can both understand where future something like this may happen elsewhere, but it also opens us up to that possibility of supporting transitional housing projects, modular housing projects, and being able to go to these organizations like the school board or Metrolinx and say, hey, are you doing anything with that piece of land? Can we do something even in the medium term?
That's a report to council or a presentation to council, or?
Through the chair, we certainly can bring that to council. It would be a staff exercise at this point, but we're happy to share the results of that with council.
That'd be great. You said there's a lot of reasons why someone would not want to go to a shelter. Can you, I mean, I'm unfamiliar, you know, my own privilege, but what are some reasons they give for not wanting to go to a shelter?
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Lee, sometimes, and again, this is anecdotal, and the region's encampment strategy speaks to this, there are folks that work that are unsheltered, and so they might work overnights, but the shelter operates so that you have to be inside by 9 p.m. or you can't come in for the night. Some don't allow pets, and pets are obviously a big part of a lot of people's lives. Sometimes folks don't feel safe. Sometimes folks are bonded with a partner, or you have families. There's a lot of different reasons why a existing shelter might not be a good fit for an unsheltered individual.
Okay. So this proposed bylaw, the facility control bylaw, right? We currently do not have that, is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's correct. We do not have one.
So it'd be an act of council to enact this with all the, like to ask for this, correct?
Through the chair, yes. So staff will be bringing forward a staff report and the corresponding draft bylaw, seeking council's feedback and ultimately seeking council's approval to implement the bylaw.
And will that happen in this upcoming council meeting or October or?
It will be in October.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you. Thank you myself. All right. Next on this big list, we have Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much, Ms. Brownridge. This is such an interesting and informative presentation. I really, really appreciate it. Because one of the things, as the local councillor in Ward 3, where homelessness or the visibility of homelessness is the most prevalent, although you're right, it is spreading to other wards, one of the most common questions or emails that I get is, I see homeless people in the park, in my plaza, on my street. What is the town doing? I told someone, but they're still there. Like, what's happening? So I really appreciate what you have explained to us and the residents who are watching, that the town is doing a whole heck of a lot, trying to win what appears to be a losing battle at this time. And that there are many people and groups doing really good work. I'm glad you started your session by saying that, because that is very true, and it is so hard. You mentioned that this is a nationwide problem, and that has come up many, many times in our responses to residents, in our meetings, in our conversations. And I just wanted to mention, as evidence that that is true, not that I don't believe it, but I recently was invited as downtown councillor to join a working group of other downtown councillors. It came about as out of AMO, sort of. And so I met a couple weeks ago with representatives from Hamilton, Oakville, Brantford, Brampton, Ottawa, London, Thunder Bay, Barrie. And that was the second set of meetings. There had already been one that I couldn't attend. So, and our question for the agenda item was, what are the main issues of your downtown? And maybe we can look at it and come up with ideas, share best practices, etc. And guess what the number one answer in all of those municipalities were? Was the impact of homelessness on the downtown. So when we say it's not just Ajax, it's not just Durham, it's everywhere, that's true. So I really want to stress that. There was a comment on one of your slides, you did talk about trespass orders. I think the businesses in the downtown plaza, and boy, oh boy, there has been so much support provided, but also concerns brought up. Like, it's just, that is an area that definitely needs ongoing support. I think there was conversation about having trespass signs put up in the plaza so that they could be enforced, I believe, by DRPS. Do you know anything about that, or has that come up?
That's something I can get back to you on. I do know that right now, because the town owns the sort of the parking lot area and boulevard behind the plaza, that we are able to trespass individuals if it meets a certain criteria that we have through our code of conduct policy. However, in terms of putting up some signage, I'll have to double check on the additional signage is an ongoing conversation. I think it is something, but I'll get back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And you made a really good point about we're a lower tier municipality, and the responsibility of handling this issue is really with the region. And as a resident, we know that a resident, that doesn't matter, right? They see something, they want it fixed, they're going to go to their representative, and they want some answers. But it's good to know that, because it has to be a team effort. It has to be a roundtable discussion of all these providers that you talk about the police, about the region, about Town of Ajax staff. It's really important about the residents that are impacted, either newly or for years, and definitely the businesses. So I do have a motion that I would like to bring. We'll let the rest of questions happen, Chair, just about gathering all of these people together. But I really thank you for your time, and please know that me as a councillor, and I'm sure others, we see the work and we appreciate that work. So that's my comments.
Through the chair, before we get to the motion, can I just comment that I think the comment around teamwork is really important, and as such, this presentation, staff will be sharing it with the regional chair, with the MPP and the MP, both the presentation itself and then the corresponding YouTube sort of clip, just so that folks can watch and experience this. And I would encourage members of council, for folks that express the concern to you, whether they're business owners, residents, unsheltered individuals themselves, you're welcome to share this. We'll clip the YouTube video as well, just because I think it's a good opportunity to share information.
100%. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mrs. Brownridge, and that's why I extended you the time I did. So we'll move on to local councillor Rob Tyler Morin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Brownridge, for the great work you're doing. And I hope it doesn't fall on deaf ears. It just sounds like something we would automatically say. But I see people in the audience, in the gallery, that work on this every single day, and really, really appreciate that. And I think sometimes when you get these jobs, you don't know what's ahead, and next thing you know, you're dealing with the toughest file maybe ever. Try not to do too many comments here. This is so wide and deep, this subject. We were all just in Ottawa at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, and when you speak to all the elevator conversations, 444 Ajaxes in Ontario, Nipigon and Ottawa and Nipissing and Windsor. Everybody's got a homeless story, and that's not to minimize what's happening here. Just an FYI to anyone that doesn't know that. It is severe and widespread. So now, my long-winded to get to the question, is this bylaw, so you said in your presentation that, are we moving in the direction that if I report, like I did yesterday and today, that there's an encampment that's, butted up against the back lawn of somebody and their, kids are there and there's an encampment, that person wouldn't necessarily be moved unless we had a quote-unquote agreed upon place to take them?
Through the chair, the short answer would be Yes, however, the goal is always to connect the individuals with the service provider of the region. And the region has the ability to connect folks with shelter. They have the ability to connect folks with some of our emergency motel programs if these are families or different things like that. So the goal is always to get the individuals connected with the region, get them on the by name list, have them integrated into the broader program that allows them to not need to be set up in a tent right
Sure.
against somebody's backyard.
Okay.
However, in cases where right now, when an individual says, I am on the list, we verify that they are indeed waiting for shelter. Right now, staff are operating as though we are not able to force removal when it's on our property, unless there is a safety issue, and that is a safety issue from, vehicular viewpoints. It's a safety issue from if
Right.
it's on the boulevard, if there's fire hazards, if we need access to the space, that kind of thing.
So when you say on, if I may, through the chair, when you say on our property, you're speaking about municipal property.
Yes, town-owned property.
So and the way you were wording it, it sounds like we're already doing the conversations where trying to get people connected with the right services. That's already been ongoing. But is there a line in the sand that we're drawing today or in October with this new bylaw that will stipulate that unless that person has a place to go, they can't be moved?
So no, so the bylaw, through the chair, so through the bylaw that'll be introduced is really adding additional requirements on service providers like it would be like CFOC, the hub, it would be on somebody like a Joanne's House, on somebody like a Horizon House, that it's a negotiable conversation with the town where, as proposed, again, pending council approval, an operator would say, hey, this is how I operate. I have 30 beds. They're funded by the region. And the town has the ability to say, okay, what is your plan for, making sure that you're up to fire code? What is your plan to make sure you're up to building code? Have you talked to your neighbors? Do they know that this is coming? Are you hiring 24-hour security to support some of these challenging things that happen in neighborhoods? So it's about creating a safer environment around the shelters. In terms of the actual individual in a tent elsewhere, away from one of those shelters, that still remains an area of gray where staff are just trying to keep a lid on the day-to-day. And that's really the purpose of today's presentation.
So my last question, staying under my time here. So the northeast corner of Achilles Road in Harwood, right there. So is that considered a place that if they were in a park where kids are playing soccer, is that where we're going to take people that are displaced?
So through the chair, staff don't have that direction from council to have a designated location for folks to be
region,
sent.
though, right?
So it's the region. So if, again, I won't speak for the region, if that's something they chose to do, to direct folks to be on their property. But in terms of what town staff do not recommend, we don't say you can't stay here, but you can go X. And that's part of the challenge is we now have to identify where somebody's going. And so that's why we focus on shelter as where that's an option. But it is, as you can see, rather challenging.
I hope this is on topic. Can I ask one more question, Madam Chair? Okay. I always forget the address, but the shelter in Whitby, the famous shelter in Whitby.
1635.
That one. Is it with the $6 million in additional funds that they received? I'm just paraphrasing on the figures. Is that now all done and up and running, or are they still building that and making it bigger and better?
Through the chair, so phase 1 is completed.
Okay.
The funding they've received is for phase 2, which I believe is an additional 45 beds. So they have, and don't quote me on this number,
Right.
they already have beds, they'll be adding 45 more.
30 beds or I think-ish, and then they're going to add 45. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on to Regional Councillor Joanne Dice. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for your presentation. I just want to request, if possible, that you present also to the Ajax Homelessness Task Force, who are working under CDCD right now, because there's some updates there that you may be interested in, and I think they'd be interested to see or to get a bigger idea of what's actually happening. You talked about looking for a partner for housing, and what do you mean by that? Who are you looking to?
Through the chair. So if somebody that either manufactured modular housing or or was a developer of some kind, a Habitat for Humanity, for example, came to the town and said, hey, we have this great opportunity. We'd like to put 35 transitional housing units into a piece of land. Our challenge is, okay, where is that land? So if a provider came to us and said, hey, I have the means to do this and I found a partner that owns the land to do this, the town would certainly have a conversation and bring forward a proposal to council about something that would be meaningful. But I will say that the capital costs of building or putting up a modular tiny home, for example, is one piece of the equation. And I think the other bigger picture conversation is around those operational costs, whether it's the Wi-Fi, washrooms, security, all those pieces. So looking at that comprehensive plan, we're certainly open to it. I think we are limited in our ability to drive the bus. We'd like somebody to bring us a bus and say, hey, we've got a bus.
Well, that's the first I've heard that you are looking at something like that, and that's exactly the conversation they're having at the Homelessness Task Force. So CDCD, as I say, have agreed to support that. They have that ability to access some of that funding through grants, hopefully. So there is already, there's been a product that's already has been chosen, and there's a meeting actually, I think, this week on that. But it's, again, there's this disconnect in who's talking to who, because I guess nobody's really brought all of the parties together, and that should happen sooner than later. I think, the cleanup issues, I know they've been a huge issue, and I know it's a big challenge. But moving people from one corner to the other isn't the solution either, because it's just the same thing. You're moving them from place to place, but they still need a place to put their belongings. And some, as homeless as you can imagine, are hoarders. They have nothing. So they have this need to keep things, and sometimes that's an issue. Are they looking at, do you know if the shelter is looking at increasing the number of spaces for this winter, or are we going to have a warming center here in Ajax this winter?
Through the chair, we do have a conversation booked for next week with the region where they will share their plans for winter warming in Ajax. That information, last year what they did is they opened up the basement of the hub, and it was open 24/7 for folks to drop in. Obviously we have added complicating layers when you get into adding cots or folks sleeping from a fire code perspective. So those details of where that will be located and the capacity of those spaces, we're having a conversation with the region shortly, and we'll share that update with council as soon as we know, and the community more broadly.
I'd like that information also. We're seeing an increase of people losing their limbs from frostbite in the wintertime. Last year the numbers went way up. So that costs the healthcare system a great deal of money, and of course you want to avoid that at all costs for the people involved. So I think that's a really critical issue, because there were some here in Ajax that were affected by that. Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, I have a question. So when we talk about partnering with different folks and what that could look like, I know that back in July, myself and I believe it's Salika had a meeting with the Blue Door folks. And are they not someone we can partner with? Like we've done a calculation through the town of the lands that we own.
So to the chair, yes. So that will be part of the exercise as soon as we have that inventory and have a chance to take a look at what is available. As I kind of mentioned when Regional Councillor Dys was asking, the primary barrier that we have right now is it's council direction. I will say staff don't have the direction to do anything like that. However, we're looking for some background information in terms of land. So I would say like ownership of land and available land with the appropriate zoning or temporary zoning permissions or whatever that looks like. That is kind of our step one to be able to bring forward that to a prospective partner like Blue Door, like Habitat for Humanity, anything like that. So that's kind of step one is doing some of that background research on land availability.
So then let me ask this question. We know that across the street, the region owns that land. You've mentioned that there is a lawyer's letter that came to us and basically said, it's our land, we're not removing people from it, because if we do, we have nowhere to put them. So why aren't we then going to the region and saying, okay, if this is the stance you're taking, and the people are there, and we have nowhere to put them, why aren't we looking at putting some modular type homes there temporarily to help with that?
So I will say the region does have plans for that parcel that were shared with Regional Council earlier this year for construction, I think in 2027. So I'm not sure that it's the appropriate location. However, that's a question more, I'd say, for the region than for staff. But the region is aware that that property is theirs and is currently being used as a place for folks in encampments.
Can we not have our staff reach out for that conversation? I guess you need direction from us. That's what you're saying. In the short term, you're saying, Councillor Henry, I can do whatever you want, just give us direction as a whole from council, yes?
Through the chair, that is the case with all of the work that I take at the town of Ajax.
Got it. So, okay, so looking back at slide number 12 of your presentation, I'm seeing that where we've asked for the 50% cleanup. And my understanding is the reason we asked for 50% is because that's all we're allotted, because the regional council voted on and agreed to, and I don't mean regional councillors that are sitting here, I mean as a whole, voted on and agreed to, this would be the deal that we would have with the region, that we would get 50% only of the cleanup, correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, so is that something, I guess, in this term of regional council cannot be explored to change? It would have to go into the next term, because you can only bring something up once within a year, or once within a term process. So the regional does it work like this council where you can only do it per term?
Through the chair, I'm not sure about the region's procedural bylaw, but that would be, it would need to be a change initiated by the region.
Okay, so like even a motion that came from this council would not trigger that change necessarily?
That would be, I believe that, unless there was, again, I'm not speculating, but if our council wrote a letter and shared that information with the region, but again, it would require action at the regional level. We would not directly trigger that.
Okay, and I'm going to ask a crazy question. Pickering, they've got their 7 to 11 homeless folks, and they have them in a farmhouse situation on a very isolated piece of land. And why can't we make a deal with someone that has something like that set up and say, hey, expand, and we'd like, you to help us with this situation. They've got the funding coming in from the casino. They've got the land that's been given to them. Why can't we do that?
Through the chair, are you proposing that we ask Pickering to pick up another house to give to us?
Or expand on the house that they have?
Again, I think that would require council direction for our staff to go and do that.
Has that been proposed at the regional level, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge.
No, okay. All right, just, asking a question. I'm sure I'll get a call from Kevin Ash later on, but yes. Just asking a question, right? Because they've got the space for it, and we seem to be experiencing more homeless folks than they are. And, winter is coming, and we need a place for these folks to go. They can't be left out in the street, or we're going to be dealing with something very, very tragic. So, all right, there's no more questions in this. Oh, there is. I do apologize. Yes. Councillor Tyler Morin.
Very quickly, thanks for letting me back in, Madam Chair, for the second time. The proposed 2027 build by the region at Achilles Road in Harwood, in the discussions that you've heard, or maybe my regional colleagues have heard, do they say, well, obviously we would close down Station Street when that happens? We wouldn't have both. Has that happened?
Through the chair, not formally. There's been no formal determination of what would be included in that. I can get the excerpt from the regional council report and share it with council if that's helpful, just to see what they've committed to.
Yeah, yes.
Oh.
Sorry, your chair.
No, that's
No, but Christy.
That's a fair point.
Christy wants to.
Director McClarty.
Through the chair to Councillor Rob Tyler Moran. At this point, we don't know that it would be a shelter. So I don't want to complicate that one is a temporary shelter and that's a shelter. It could be transitional housing. It could be nonprofit housing. They haven't talked to us about exactly what they'd like to see at that corner.
Paramount that we can't have.
Pardon me?
It's paramount that we can't have both. Anyways, for another time.
Yes.
Just, thank you, Chair.
I think that's a fair point, Councillor Tyler Moran, that we as this council should be informed what that looks like, and should there need to be a letter written expressing our concerns about doubling as opposed to condensing into one. I think that's a very fair point. So please, if you could take note of that. So this is to be received for a presentation information only, correct? Oh, yes, we do have a motion. I apologize. We're going to get to Councillor Bauer's motion. Go ahead.
Thank you, and clerk should have it, I believe. Thank you. So the motion is update on homelessness in Ajax. That staff be directed to coordinate a public town hall meeting for residents and businesses about the impacts of homelessness in Ajax with the appropriate staff from the region of Durham and DRPS. And two, that this meeting be held after staff have introduced the crisis care facility bylaw at the October 25th, 2025 meeting of council. So there were some comments. So this was a great conversation that really sort of emphasizes that, yeah, we do need to gather and talk about this as a group, because even sitting in this room, you can see the five of us have bits and pieces of information. I would like to commend Regional Councillor Dyes, who has worked on this project in our ward for many, many years, finding solutions, finding housing, finding real things that can help our residents, whether they have a home or a place to call home or not. They live here in Ajax. And then of recent for Regional Councillor Crawford, who has also joined in this very important cause that is impacting our town. So I would ask my colleagues to take a look at this motion, and maybe I want to consider now, Ms. Brownridge, is this enough direction to include members of CDCD, members of the Homelessness Task Force, any other operational groups that might need to be in attendance? Wondering for an opinion.
Councillor Bauer, can I just ask also too, please, with regards to the second part of your motion, when you say when you're saying about after October, do you have a timeline on this? Would you like this done like in December? Are you talking, like, I'm assuming you're talking before May of 26?
Yes, I'm talking once we have the bylaw in place, if that's going to be passed, then there would be some other discussion that would take part, right? So maybe I'll defer that to staff, to Mrs. Brownridge. Is there an ideal time that would be right?
So kind of to answer both questions through the chair. So I think the sort of public town hall meeting for residents and businesses that are looking for some clarity on the current state of the situation, understanding who to call, how they can help, what is happening. I do think that that meeting is something that can happen by the end of the year, like after October, sometime in November or early December, like in that 6-week period, is certainly something that is achievable by staff. I think on the other service providers, whether that's the Homelessness Task Force or the or CDCD, I think if it's amenable to council, that staff have those conversations on one-on-one, that we give the presentation to them directly, or that we bring them in for a meeting and kind of talk about these solutions and some of the ideas that they have. That I think is something that staff can take away as a friendly, and that would be through the course of normal duties for the Strategic Initiatives Coordinator for Community Supports.
Okay, I'm satisfied by that. Thank you. So, and by friendly, should we add the wording, or you're just taking it away?
I will take that away.
Thank you.
And that includes all wards, correct, this meeting? This is for?
Yeah, residents and businesses.
Excellent, okay. So, of Ajax, yes. So we're going to move into questions on the motion, and we have Councillor Dyes.
I just need clarification, sorry. Are you bringing, are you bringing all the partners together? Because whether they're community partners or, regional or you know, Ajax partners together prior to having an open house? Or are you going to have that public open house conversation without them? Because it sounded like they were going to be separated.
So yes, so what I would propose would be separate conversations, so that meeting with the task force, meeting with CDCD can happen after this, anytime after this presentation has happened today, because it will be a different version of this presentation and soliciting ideas and understanding where everybody is at in terms of the solutions that they're looking to propose. I think that is a conversation that those conversations can start immediately following this meeting. I do think that after the bylaw has been put, or, you know, in theory, assuming it's passed by council, that having that opportunity to have a broader town hall with all residents, all businesses that would like to just understand the issue broadly, that are maybe looking for an outlet to express frustration. I think having that as a separate conversation is probably more valuable, just because I don't want the task force members or CDCD or somebody like a Habitat for Humanity to feel burnt out from a conversation that they're listening to, the experiences of, you know, business owners or patrons of the plaza, or some folks that are really frustrated. I'm not sure that I want to blend, that I would recommend blending those two meetings together.
I just want to make sure that we're not working in silos, that's all. And that's what's happening now. We're missing there's some gaps in the information, so thank you.
Regional Councilor Sterling Lee.
I'm sure this is going to pass, but I would personally feel more comfortable if we refer this to council. I think the mayor and Regional Councilor Crawford would want to chime in on this. I think staff still have a lot to flesh out regarding details, so I'm going to move to refer this to just council. Again, I'm sure it'll pass. This is not any opposition, but by putting it on the council agenda, you'll also have a chance for community input as well, for residents to speak on it.
So I'm going to ask the clerks about that, because our timeline's already passed for motions. So what does that look like?
Through you, Madam Chair, so we can just have a motion to refer, and this will end up on the council agenda as an item.
Okay, so the motion has to be to refer this to the council.
Correct.
Excellent, okay. And the wording for that, can we have that up on the screen, please? So that everyone's clear.
To you, Madam Chair, it's just a motion to refer to the September council agenda. I can place it on the screen if people would prefer.
Are we good with as is? We're good. Okay, so if we could vote? I'm sure that's going to pass, and it does. Wonderful. Thank you for all your time and attention to this, and all your team for all the hard work on this. We appreciate it. And now we're moving on to 6.2, my favorite topic, the Ajax Fairgrounds opening. If we could have, who's presenting today? Is it Director Meredith or a combination? Okay.
It will be a combination.
Director Meredith and I will be here obviously to present to you guys about the Ajax Fairgrounds grand opening and 70th anniversary celebration. So I'll start with a little bit about the event, and Director Meredith will go into talking about the traffic plans and that we have into place. So as you know, the event date and time is scheduled for next Friday, September 19th from 6 to 9:15 p.m. and will be located obviously at the Ajax Fairgrounds, which is adjacent to the Audley Recreation Center. So what to expect? So on our end, we are looking to do live stage entertainment. So we'll have different entertainment happening throughout the night. We'll have our official remarks. We'll have around the site, we will have different food truck offerings with a variety of different things that they will have. We'll have interactive areas, including airbrush tattoos and henna for those that are bringing their kids, they can get involved. But also for those that are just interested in getting that done, and it's open to anybody and everybody. We'll have a sip and celebrate with cocktails and craft beers. So the whole site is licensed. So people are able to grab a drink, grab some food, listen to the live music, and just enjoy the park for what it's meant to be. There will be Town of Ajax booths available, as well as an opportunity to demo the new scooter e-bikes program through the Lime Micromobility Program. So they'll be there and people can actually go and test out the different scooters and e-bikes and kind of see what that's all about. And we're really, really excited that we'll have our first ever drone show celebrating the 70th anniversary. And I'll go into more detail about that on the next slide. So as I mentioned, we will be doing our first ever drone show, and it will take place at 9 p.m. So hence why our event goes till 9:15. We'll have that to account for the show. It includes over 400 drones, and will display 19 images over a span of 12 minutes. And that whole show is going to be an experience to help people understand the legacy of Ajax told through a 70-year-old journey. So just to really celebrate our 70th anniversary and how we came to be and how proud we are of where we are today. Along with that, in the background will be live music. So it will be a nice big show. Like I said, over the 12 minutes, there'll be to music as well as the imagery. And the big popular question is, how are people getting to the event? So as I mentioned, Director Meredith will go into some more detail as well. But a lot of the stuff we've been talking about is how this is going to be a car-free event with no on-site parking, except for the limited accessible parking available on the first-come, first-served basis. But we are offering 3 convenient shuttle locations for people to choose from. I have listed them here. So we have Ajax Downs, just at their gravel parking lot off of Kingston Road. We'll do Ajax Town Hall, as well as J. Clark Richardson. Accessible buses will be available as well for anybody that is wondering. We'll have accessible buses at all the locations, as well as people are encouraged to walk or bike to the event or use any of our self-serve bike corrals that we'll have on site. Also, hot off our press this morning, we just confirmed with DRT that they will be extending the service for us. So they will be extending it till 10 o'clock. So people that do want to come with DRT, typically the event, their service ends at 7. They've now going to extend it for us until 10, so people can actually leave the event. Okay. Next, we just wanted to share a little bit about the site plan and what it's scheduled to look like. As you can see, we have everything I talked about. We have the stage, we have food trucks, we have vendors, picnic tables. So we're really just trying to get people to come and enjoy the space, but also leave a lot of the green space available for them to enjoy it as a come, bring your own blanket, bring your own chair, kind of enjoy the fairgrounds. That's it for me, actually. So I'm going to now pass it over to you, Director Meredith, and I'll be here for questions if anybody has any at the end.
Thank you. Just building on the information that has been provided, there's really 4 elements from a transportation planning perspective that will support this event. Sort of as referenced, and one of the important components is the active transportation routes. So whether that's walking, cycling, any other mobile ways in which you can attend the site. What we've got is a number of connecting points, whether it's up the Crothers Creek Valley through a multi-use trail, whether it's along Taunton Road via multi-use trail, up Audley Road along Williamson Road with a combined trail system as well as on-street bike lanes. There are a number of opportunities for individuals to attend the site by means other than a vehicle. Within the site itself, as you access, there will be bike corrals that will be secured so that there is the ability to park your vehicles with security being provided to allow you access to and from the location.
Oh, sorry. I forgot I'm changing your slide. Go on.
The next was really with respect to the shuttle routes have already been referenced. I'm just showing it here sort of on a screen. You can see the 3 shuttle routes that have been provided. They are dedicated routes. There will be 4 buses per route. So you don't cycle through each of the 3 routes. Each route is dedicated. And as I mentioned, so there's 4 for a total of 12 buses that will be provided to support the event. As you can see from Town Hall, the route is coming along Achilles up Salem, across Roslyn to Arc. From J. Clark Richardson would be along Roslyn, traveling north on Audley, and then the casino coming east along Carrison, and then north up to the site, again using Audley Road. So those are the 3 routes that we've been identified that will be dedicated for shuttle service. As you can see as you enter the site, this map really shows that in addition to the shuttle service themselves, provisions are being paid for emergency access vehicles as well. As many members of council will know, there is an emergency access point south of the Audley Recreation Center, directly off of Audley Road, just north of the CN tracks, which allows vehicles or any vendors or staff to access the site with an internal trail system that's been designed to accommodate larger, heavier vehicles, including food trucks and fire and emergency vehicles. The shuttle buses themselves would extend north on Audley Road, coming in the existing right in, right out intersection with Audley Road, would extend across the face of the Audley Recreation Center. And then the drop-off and pickup location would be along that sort of easterly north-south spine of the Audley Recreation Center itself. As individuals are dropped off or picked up, they'll then continue around across the front of the baseball diamonds and out the signalized intersection at Williamson Drive. I will point out that at Williamson, there will be areas that will be monitored with DRPS. They will be providing that access and flow and directing traffic sort of at that key intersection. As part of the shuttle service and access to the site, as you can see from the intersection, the signalized intersection at Williamson and Audley Road down to Roslyn Road, that area will be closed. So I mentioned that DRPS would be positioned at the Williamson signal intersection with Audley Road. They'll also be positioned at Roslyn and Audley Road as well, so that access to the Audley Recreation Center itself, as has been mentioned, is not being promoted for vehicle access. So the shuttle routes along Audley Road has been protected for strictly emergency vehicles as well as the shuttle services themselves. And the theory behind sort of the closure of Audley Road is to allow an efficient and timely delivery of patrons to and from the site. So that area, the shuttle buses will be able to travel freely up and down Audley Road to Roslyn Road and then get to the actual shuttle locations. It also allows for uninterrupted access should any form of emergency vehicles and services be required as part of the event itself. Neighborhood traffic, as you can see within the Castlefield developments, would be in off of Rushworth, off of Roslyn Road. There would be no ability to get onto Audley Road from Rushworth during the event. That area, there would be jersey barriers that would prevent that form of access. For the hamlet, Imagination, and the neighborhood further north, access is obviously provided along Williamson from Salem Road, and then all the north-south access points off Taunton Road would be available for residents to access the site or access their neighborhood.
Okay.
With respect to the neighborhood itself, the area in purple to the left has been identified, and this was a similar exercise we went through during the Pan Am Games, where there is a likelihood of individuals who do choose to attend the site by vehicle may look for on-street parking opportunities. So this area in purple, we have identified the maps to the right that fairly small and difficult to read sort of on this particular slide, but there will be temporary no parking signs that will be posted within the neighborhood on one side of the street. Those signs will start to be installed on September 16th. They'll be removed on September the 22nd. Those areas, while being posted for temporary no parking on one side of the street, they will also be actively patrolled with Ajax bylaw officers who will be within and dedicated to patrol the sites both north and south of Nottingham, or sorry, of Williamson itself. So there will be active or proactive sort of monitoring to ensure the enforcement of those temporary no parking locations. Again, this is something similar to that we did experience during the Pan Am Games as well. So those are really the four components that we've identified that will support individuals and how they attend the site, how they leave the facility. And it's something that, obviously, we're going through this exercise for the first time. We've developed this traffic demand management plan as part of the overall process. Again, it's something that we know is going to be ongoing. It's something that we're going to continue to monitor. We will look to make modifications on a go-forward basis as needed or required. But we think the four components that we've addressed and that we are in the process of implementing, there will be a communication strategy through strategic affairs that will go out to the local residents that will all receive this information. It'll be conveyed on our website, and we will have a full communication plan that is ready to be launched sort of subsequent to today's meeting. So that is essentially our presentation for this afternoon, and would welcome any questions.
If I could just jump in, Director Meredith, for one last thing that we actually identified late Friday was we are going to be including a kiss and ride for the event as well. So it is kiss and ride, so anyone with Uber, taxi service, anything like that, they'll be able to enter the site, drop off at an identified safe location, and then they'll be able to leave the site. So they won't be able to park, that will be monitored. They won't be able to park their vehicles, but they'll be able to come in and then drop off and leave as they came in. But as you mentioned, that is our presentation. Thank you so much. We're open for questions.
Thank you to both of you. I do have a speakers list in order, but as I was so kind to allow extra time for the Ward 3 councillors, and if Councillor Tyler Moran would not mind, I know he's first on the speaker list, could I allow Regional Councillor Lee to go first? Would that be okay? As the ward rep? Is it just, okay.
Because I know,
Yep, go ahead.
so yeah, just to be clear, I know you have a lot more insight and scope, because my only thing is a comment, and I don't want to give away anything, but we were able to view the area to visit the actual fairgrounds the other day. It's an absolutely beautiful municipal asset. And I know that we're concentrating on events, but I don't want to say too much because I want everybody in Ajax, everyone in Ajax at some point make their way there. But I think it's going to be a beautiful asset on a Tuesday afternoon or walking your dog. There's so many things I just want to burst, but I don't want to just give away. We'll save it for the surprise, but I just want to inject that if there's 365 days a year, probably 350 of them, there won't be an event there. You know, there might be maybe even higher. Like, so it's just something to think about. This is not just an event center. It's an absolutely beautiful park. Like I'm telling you, I can't say enough about it. I just wanted to say that. Thank you for letting me in.
And thank you for not bursting during the meeting. Okay, we're going to go into Regional Councillor Sterling Lee. Go ahead.
At the beginning of the day of Friday, the 19th, are we cutting off all parking? Because what stops me hypothetically from leaving my car there and then like getting a ride out, then I have a car back home? Just, do we think about that as an option?
Do you want me to take this one? I can take this. So typically we do not. Typically we will start that in conjunction to the, my apologies, the road closure. So the road closure is starting at 5. So we typically would start things like that at that time. The conversation that has not happened is if cars are there and they've parked there, would we take it in tow? That conversation has not happened, but I'm happy to discuss that with the committee and counterparts. But no, we would not do that in the morning. We would start that in conjunction with the road closure.
And then you mentioned a drop-off. Would that just be at the front entrance then? Is that your kiss and ride?
Yeah, so basically they'll come in off the lights of Williamson and Audley, my apologies, and they will make their way towards the skate park on the east side of the skate park. And then there's a spot that we're actually designating as a kiss and ride. So we did meet with Fire on Friday, and they helped us to identify this location as a safe location, and we came up with a plan. So it'll be right at the front, and then they'll be able to walk into the entrances that way.
Great. And then to Mr. Meredith, we're allowing parking off Williamson? Because after the first roundabout, there is some parking by the Reevesmere subdivision. So he says living off Reevesmere. So there's that row of parking. Are we going to say no parking there as well? Or because realistically, I get all the sides. it's typically no parking along Williamson, but what if cars do park there on the bike lane, for example? Will bylaw be ticketing?
So that will be an actively patrolled area that those individuals would be ticketed along Williamson. Wherever there are existing no parking signs, those will be on, such as Ryder Crescent, such as Williamson, those stay in effect. The temporary no parking signs will be enforced the same way. There will be limited opportunity for parking within the neighborhood in areas that are not designated for temporary no parking.
Okay, that's perfect. Looking forward to the event.
I just wanted, didn't touch upon it entirely, but obviously the Audley Recreation Center remains open while we're also hosting this special event. So the library, public swim, there is a permit for the event space or the community room at the Audley Recreation Center.
That night.
They will have passes so that they're being recognized, those individuals that are attending that event. So the Audley Rec Center will be open and the programs will continue to be offered throughout the event.
And then I believe there's a report coming to council going forward past this event, but for future events on how we're going to manage traffic. Is that coming in the fall, winter?
So there's a couple of things. We've essentially the components that are being delivered for this event are many of the key recommendations that are within that larger traffic plan. We want to have our first
Dry
event,
run,
look
so to
at it
speak.
and sort of see what the successes, if there's areas that need to be tweaked before we finalize that document. But a lot of the recommendations that we are implementing are coming from that draft document at this point in time. But yes, you will see a final document.
Great. No, very much looking forward to the event. It looks like you guys have thought of everything. So, yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, local councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Poonam. Good afternoon. Thank you for the presentation. Love it. And after visiting the space, I 100% agree with Councillor Tyler Moran that it is an absolutely beautiful asset to our town. So just to confirm, the active transportation routes that will be tweaked as we see what works, that will be something that will happen for every event? So it will never be a drive your car to the fairground event?
The active transportation sort of points of access they exist today, and there's nothing new that's being added for the purposes of a special event. Those are all existing trails, all existing bike lanes, and they...
No, sorry to interrupt you,
Sorry, I thought you said
Director Mayor.
active
That's
transportation.
not, so how we're doing a shuttle service, so we're not, no cars allowed, is that what will be happening at all future events at this venue? Or will there ever be opportunities to have something where there won't be shuttle service? Or does that come with the package of renting the space?
So a couple of things. So we are putting together an actual special event package so that future requests for special events, there will be a package of information that would be available that we will go through with every sort of future permit holder. What we need to be doing and what we are doing now is looking at 2026 and beyond, looking at commitments that have been made in terms of permitting the community room, certain baseball tournaments that we know draw a large number of vehicles as well. What we don't want to have is having all of these large events happening at the same time at the Audley Recreation Center, which is not something that we are planning for. So we are having a coordination meeting, and those are ongoing now. So as we look into 2026 and beyond, that we are coordinating what the Audley Recreation Center is intending to provide. So there will be, depending on the event at times, opportunities for some parking on the Audley Recreation Center. Right now, we know there's about 570 spaces, but we need to understand sort of what else is going on in the community center. We do want to continue and ensure that the Audley Recreation Center still continues to provide the service to support the residents of Ajax while we host these special events as well. So those meetings, we will be bringing a special event package for the fairgrounds to council as well that speaks to this in some more detail.
Okay.
I do see the majority of the special events having a shuttle service component to it. I don't see how we can get away from that.
Yeah.
Once we're over a few hundred people,
Yep.
the parking
just
is
the mere
the parking is
size,
going to
yeah.
be stressed in that area. So I do see shuttles being a long-term requirement for
Okay.
the majority. What we've shown today are just 3 locations that we're proposing shuttle services.
Yeah.
There are additional shuttle opportunities, including the Ajax GO Station. There are sort of Pickering High School down
Yep.
further south in other locations, McLean Community Center as well. There's other possible locations, but again, we'll speak to that in the Transportation Master Plan, but we'll also look and we'll identify the location and number of shuttle services based on the projected size of the event. So if it's a 5,000 event versus a 10,000 person event, they'll have different packages that will be identified. So there is a lot of coordination and planning that needs to happen, but at this point in time, we believe we've scheduled the scale and magnitude of the shuttles and the promotions that we're encouraging to meet the demands for this event.
Okay, thank you. And quick question about Uber.
Yeah.
Maybe it's silly, but it can be, if I'm driving my son there, that counts as a kiss and ride spot, right? It doesn't have to be a paid-for service that you're looking for. It's just if you're getting a ride, right?
Yeah, so what will happen is you'll identify yourself as you get up to the road closure and you'll say, I'm just dropping off, and then you'll enter the site. There is a company that will ask you again, what are you here for? And they'll say, okay, you're just heading into this parking lot area right here. If you go any further, you won't even be allowed in because you'll be identified as someone who's dropping off. So you'll be asked to go to the right, drop your son off, and then continue on the way.
Okay, perfect. And then that's the same for like, there'll be spots if you ride your bike or if you take an e-scooter or some mobility device and make your way there. Those will all be acceptable.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Looking forward to that event and the drone show.
Us too.
Thank you. That's it, Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to ask some questions, and I'm going to open it back up for any further questions. So as the local councillor, I have some concerns. You've addressed a lot. And first of all, I'd like to start by saying the tour of the fairgrounds was beautiful. Staff has done an amazing job. It's quite tranquil, and I'm sure that the existing neighborhood will get many, many years of use out of this. It's not just a fairgrounds, but it does have a secondary purpose, which it has been planned for. But my job is to make sure that I bring forth concerns, not just now, but concerns I've heard from residents over the years. And I know that this area in particular, there was issues, and Director Meredith, you would know this as well, with regards to excess parking on Ryder Crescent, what that looked like years ago, and it has been resolved. So my concern, I'm gonna ask a few questions. Number one, the company Lime that'll be there, they're gonna be maintaining the 16 and above, correct, for usage of any of their scooters, and helmets will be required. Is that correct? Who would I ask that of?
So that'll be completely run by them. So they'll maintain whatever their bylaws are. We have worked with our team that is bringing them. They'll make sure they have the correct waivers, but they'll follow their own rules and protocols that they have.
Okay. And with regards to Durham Region Transit, I did miss that. Did you say it was supposed to be 7 and now goes to 10 p.m.?
Yeah, so their normal scheduled route actually ends at 7:30, and we've worked with them, and they will be extending the service until 10:02. So the last bus will leave oddly at 10. The event ends at 9:15, giving people about 45 minutes to leave the site on the bus that they came.
And the route will be oddly going south to Roslyn?
It'll be whatever their existing route for their Durham Transit is. So they're not changing their route, they're just extending the service.
The reason I asked this is I'm wondering if that's somewhere in the plan?
It's 216C. 216C, their bus route.
216C? So is that being communicated out on our channels?
Yeah, it's already been in communication out on our webpage and other communication that's gone out about the fairgrounds and how to get there.
Excellent. And then with regards to the no parking that we're talking about in the diagram, is that with regards to existing no parking, or are we putting up additional no parking areas?
We will be putting up the temporary no parking signs on September 16th and removing them on the 22nd.
So the additional no parking signs are in areas that you can currently park in now, correct?
Correct.
So what does that look like for my residents of the immediate area that want to have friends and family come over. Now they're being limited to the amount of parking that they would traditionally have because we're taking some parking away from them. How are we going to make them whole? How are we going to make up for that?
There are existing on-street parking opportunities still on one side of the street within their neighborhood. If they're having guests or visitors, I would suggest that they would be looking for available spots within those streets.
So maybe they park their car out on the street and let their visitor park within the driveway so that they have a assured spot for them. Something like that? Is that what we're talking about?
Individual homeowners will have to make their own decisions.
Through the chair, I just want to confirm that it's 11 streets. I was able to add it up. It's 11 streets, so we'll have the actual temporary no parking signs, and that it's just for the 3 hours of the event.
Yes, but this is an addition, if you will, for events to come, right? So
Right.
that's why I'm asking these
Yeah.
questions. It's not necessarily about just this event, but what this is going to look like in the future, right? Because I'm going to have questions from residents. We know that. With regards to, like, we're taking away an access point of Audley Road, which I understand why we're doing it. It's just for the 3 hours. But what does that look like with bottlenecking traffic for my residents that are trying to get home, just that live in the area, so they're not in a long line of folks trying to get into Audley Center? What does that look like for, do we have Durham Regional Police in other areas besides the traffic lights of Audley and Williamson? Are they further down on Williamson as well? What is that going to look like?
DRPS will be also at Roslyn and Audley. What I can say is this is a similar setup we have. We did not create bottlenecks or have traffic issues during the Pan Am Games.
Similar situation to Pan Am, you're saying?
The scenario would be the same in terms of individuals having access to their neighborhoods. It's the same controls in terms of limiting access along Audley Road south of Williamson to Roslyn.
Okay. Okay, and the letter that Corporate Communications is putting out, I've seen a draft of the letter, and that will be going out when? To the residents of the area?
I believe it's after this meeting, correct?
Through the
Secretary?
chair, it went out this afternoon, yes.
My apologies.
Oh, it has gone out, okay. So, actually, you know what, I think that's the majority of my questions for now. This is basically the stage of what could be to come. If we want to allow other organizations to host events there, are they going to be responsible for Durham Regional Police, for extended bylaw services, for closing the road? Do we know what that could look like in the future? Are we waiting for that package to be presented to council at a further date?
We will be presenting a package to council, but our recommendations will be that those services will be passed on to the event organizers. That would include security, DRPS, road closures, as examples, temporary washrooms, all those types of direct costs that we would facilitate, they would be borne by the event organizer.
And would that package also include like what we're doing now with the temporary no parking on certain streets?
Yeah, I think the temporary no parking on streets we're doing for this event. Ideally, we would move forward similar to what we've done along the waterfront, where we do have the proper signage so that it applies to a season.
So for season or for event?
It would be for, it's subject for, we need to have a further discussion, right? In
Okay.
terms of, once
It's
we
not a
get to
fair
that
question
point.
to ask
Right.
at this time, is what you're saying. You're saying we need to see what this looks like, we need more time, and we need to present it to council and have discussions in the senior management meeting and see what that looks like, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's fair. That's a fair response, okay. All right, I'll leave, yeah, if I think of anything else, I'll ask it at the council meeting, but thank you both for your presentation. Now, I am gonna open the floor back up to anyone. Oh, yeah, it'll be after, yeah, you're right. My date, well, there you go. I'll email you, there you go. So I'm gonna open it back up to my councilor colleagues. It's not opening, there we go.
Thank you, Chair. Quick question about the temporary no parking signs. They're being put up for the entire weekend. but they will only need to be followed for the duration of the event. So is that indicated in the letter that residents don't need to worry about that? They won't get ticketed outside of the event time?
You are correct. So I'll have to talk to my colleague, Dave Meredith, after this event about precisely what the letter says. But at this time, we've communicated that they will be installed on the 19th and perhaps not removed until the 22nd, but that it's only in effect for the 3 hours.
Okay. So, and
Immediate.
residents will be made
Yeah.
aware of that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's all our questions? Yes. All right, so thank you for your presentation, both of you. Much appreciated. And now we're moving into, where are we here? We are at 7. So I'm going to ask, thank you for your presentation, and I'm going to ask about, we have some decisions to make in a closed meeting. And do we want to move into a closed meeting? I need to know. There's no questions? Okay, so we do not have to go into closed meeting, so we don't need a break then, because this will be quicker than we thought, right? All right, so so we need to have a mover to, no, we don't need a mover for this, right? We just vote on the items, correct? Where are we here? No, so we're going to go to 7.1, and we have no questions. We're not going to move in. We're just going to go to the vote. 7.1.
I'll move it.
Councillor Lee is going to move it. We're down to 4 people here, so, right?
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
can I ask that you please read the vote aloud as it was not provided publicly prior to the meeting?
I'm sorry, say again?
Can you read the vote aloud as it was not provided publicly prior to the meeting?
The
The
vote?
motion?
Oh, the motion
The
itself?
motion language?
So appointment of Heritage Advisory Committee to
Correct.
discuss personal matters about.
Sorry, Madam Chair, the motion that we're approving in open session following the report, so the actual appointment.
I don't have that in front of me. Can we put it up on the board?
Give me one moment and I can grab it for you.
Yeah, you grab it for me, I'll read it. I'm just ready to vote and let's
So,
go.
Madam Chair, I'll read the vote if you'd like.
If you could, please.
So that council approve the following appointments to the Heritage Advisory Committee with membership to be in effect until February 28, 2027, or until their successors are appointed: Jane Gilbert and Lisa Patel.
All right, we're good with that. Let's proceed to the vote.
Do we have a mover for that?
Councillor Lee. And that has passed. And can we have whatever you need to read for 7.2, if you could do that as well?
That's just a receipt for information, so we don't need to vote on that one.
Excellent. That's it.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Councillor Bauer has moved to adjourn. All right. Vote, please. It is not 3-1. Vote accordingly, Councillor Lee. That's it. Thank you. Thank you all at home.